Chapter 542. At noon the next day, Leng Shiqi brought Sulwan and Feng Xiaomo to the training field of the 29th Guard. Sulwan's face was covered by a thin veil, but even so, it couldn't hide her devastating beauty. Feng Xiaomo on the other hand didn't have anything to hide. His burned face was revealed, making him look incomparably malevolent. At this moment Heifeichen, Elder Huang and the other 15 combat Thunder Guards were ready to go, but when they saw Sulwan and Feng Xiaomo, they were all stunned. Leng Shiqi pointed at the two and said, "Our mission this time is very difficult. Lady Susu and Feng Xiaomo's cultivation aren't weak, and can be considered two great helpers." He was right. Sulwan was at the 8th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, and her true battle strength was definitely not weaker than the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm. Not to mention Feng Xiaomo, his full strength was close to the late stage of the Spirit Astral Realm. In the eyes of Heifeichen and the others, the two of them were also rare powerful forces, but this didn't conform to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards. The two of them weren't Dark Thunder Guards and could only be considered Leng Shiqi's servants. It didn't make sense to bring the two of them to carry out the mission. But no one said anything. First of all, no one dared to stand out and question Leng Shiqi. Moreover, the addition of 2 experts would make the mission easier. Maybe they could come back with their lives intact, so why not? Seeing that no one had any objections, Leng Shiqi waved his hand and brought everyone to the interdomain teleportation formation of the Dark Thunder Guards headquarters. Shantai County was located in a remote area, and the spiritual energy was thin. Whether it was strength or resources, it was at the bottom of the 36 counties of the Thunderflame dynasty. There were no top sects here, only a few first-rate sects, and their strength wasn't very strong, so the discipline department of Shantai County was very idle. But the Dark Thunder Guards were the opposite. Because of the lack of cultivation resources in Shantai County, whether it was spirit cultivation sects, small organizations or rogue cultivators, they never stopped attacking each other. Spirit cultivation sects were a bit better, after all, they all had their own territory, and there would only be a little friction between them. Once there was a big movement, the discipline department would come out to mediate, so it was a bit more stable. However, those small organizations and rogue cultivators were not so easy to restrain. They caused trouble everywhere, changing places after a shot. Some of them even became bandits. The city lords only knew how to sweep the snow in front of their door, and these messy things fell into the hands of the Dark Thunder Guards. Therefore, the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai County were very busy. They carried out missions all year round, and the danger was very high. They often had to fight with others, and the casualty rate was also very high. In addition, Shantai Commandery was already lacking in resources, so the treatment of the Dark Thunder Guards was not very good. They lived with their lives on the line and could not exchange for the corresponding remuneration. This led to complaints within the Dark Thunder Guards. Perhaps this was also the reason why Great Supervisor Su Jun would betray the Dark Thunder Guards. And some time ago, Su Jun's defection caused the Dark Thunder Guards to suffer heavy casualties, which was a huge blow to them, causing the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai Prefecture to lose face. They also wanted to do their best to destroy the Thunder Extermination Alliance, but they still couldn't find the headquarters of the Thunder Extermination Alliance. They were disgraced and became the laughingstock of Shantai County. They couldn't raise their heads in front of others. They had no choice but to ask for help from the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards again, hoping to destroy the Thunder Extermination Alliance as soon as possible. But what they didn't expect was that this matter had become a game between the two supervisors. It was really a fight between immortals, and mortals suffered. At this time, in the conference hall of the Dark Thunder Mansion of Shantai County, 4 people were sitting with gloomy faces. Sitting at the top was a haggard middle-aged man named Chao Peng, who was the temporary supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai County. After the previous supervisor was forced to retire, he temporarily replaced him and worked hard day and night. Even though he had the cultivation of the peak of Gang Spirit Realm, he was also getting haggard day by day. "Your Excellency Chao, what did you just say?" A slightly greasy uncle below him asked with some disbelief. "Alas, I said Supervisor Li hinted that I couldn't give any help to the 29th Guards, no matter manpower or intelligence." Chao Peng was also very helpless. When he learned that it was the 29th Guards who came to wipe out the Thunder Extermination Alliance this time, he had a bad feeling in his heart. Recently, there was a lot of breaking news about the new supervisor of the 29th Guards, Lu Xingji. He was not only the chief of this elite meeting, but also the pro-disciple of eunuch Gao. Within a few days of entering the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards, he had killed and captured masters in the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm one after another. Chao Peng should have been happy that such a person led the team to wipe out the Thunder Extermination Alliance, but the person who arranged the 29th Guards was Li Jueqing. As was known to all, Li Jueqing and eunuch Gao had always been at odds with each other, and their open and secret fights had never stopped. This time it was obvious that the two of them were secretly fighting. Chao Peng was involved in it for no reason. Especially last night, Li Jueqing personally sent him a message that he couldn't give any help when Leng Shiqi arrived. Otherwise, his temporary supervisor would be finished. But if Chao Peng really did so, eunuch Gao would definitely not let him go. On one side was Supervisor Li, on the other side was eunuch Gao. He couldn't afford to offend either of them. He really couldn't make up his mind about such a big thing, so he had to find the remaining 3 supervisors to discuss and figure out a way. If things went wrong, the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai Prefecture would probably face a big purge. So now the 4 of them were grasshoppers on the same rope. The greasy uncle also sighed deeply and said, "Why are we so unlucky to get involved in all kinds of bad things?" In the final analysis, it's Su Jun's fault. He was always so submissive. Who would have thought that he would betray us? Zuiqi, don't complain. Just think about what we should do. The dark-skinned young man sitting opposite him said impatiently. What else can we do? We can only avoid offending both sides. It's easy to say. Let me ask you, when Lu Xingji comes and asks us to help, will you give it to him or not? If we give it to him, we will offend Supervisor Gao. If we don't, we will offend Supervisor Li. Do you mean that we have to choose a chief steward to surrender? I didn't say that. Anyway, we have to figure out a way. A way. After talking for so long, isn't it still nonsense? The more they talked, the more they couldn't come up with a good idea. Gradually they became agitated. Enough. Chao Peng suddenly felt a splitting headache. He quickly stopped a few of them. Lu Xingji hasn't arrived yet and we are already in a mess. What? Report. Suddenly, an anxious Dark Thunder Guard ran in and shouted in panic, "Sirs, someone outside wants to see you. He said he is the supervisor of the 29th Guards, Lu Xingji." What? The 4 of them stood up at the same time and exclaimed, "How could he come so quickly?" Valentine's Day update, funny? Chapter 543. Leng Shiqi stood outside Dark Thunder Manor in Shantai Prefecture with his hands behind his back. He had led Guard 29, Xuanhuan, and Feng Shamo through the inter-province teleportation formation. However, Shantai Prefecture was remote and didn't have any inter-province teleportation formations, so they could only teleport to the neighboring prefecture. It would take at least 10 days to get to Shantai Prefecture from there, but Leng Shiqi had already arrived 3 days after they left. He had naturally teleported here using the Fate ability. The rest of the people were still on their way. He had come early because he was afraid that Shantai Prefecture's Dark Thunder Guards would play some tricks. He wanted to catch them off guard. Sure enough, Chao Peng, Zuiqi, and the other 2 walked over with panicked expressions. These 4 people were all grade inspectors or acting inspectors. They could be considered to be in a high position, so they definitely wouldn't panic on a normal day. However, they had been caught between eunuch Gao and Supervisor Li. Just as they were discussing how to deal with the situation, Leng Shiqi suddenly arrived, causing them to panic even more. The 4 arrived at the entrance and saw Leng Shiqi. They had all seen Leng Shiqi's image before and recognized him immediately. Chao Peng stepped forward and cupped his hands. "Inspector Lu, you've come quickly. Please come in." Chao Peng was an acting inspector. His position wasn't lower than Leng Shiqi's, so he treated him as an equal. Unexpectedly, Leng Shiqi coldly said, "Kneel." Chao Peng's body immediately stiffened. He seemed to be absent-minded for a moment. Then anger flashed in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "Lord Lu, what is the meaning of this? It's true that my Dark Thunder Guards are weak, but we won't bow and bend our knees." He had been thinking about how to choose between Supervisor Gao and Supervisor Li, but now that he saw Leng Shiqi's overbearing attitude, he was already leaning towards Supervisor Li. Zuiqi and the other 2 behind him were also secretly angry. Leng Shiqi didn't say anything. Instead, he took out a token. It was an Imperial Eunuch token. Seeing the order, Chao Peng and the other 3 turned pale with fright. According to rank, an inner supervisor was half a rank higher than a patrol inspector. Even an official patrol inspector would have to be polite when meeting an inner supervisor, let alone a temporary patrol inspector like Chao Peng. If Leng Shiqi told him to kneel, he would kneel. Chao Peng's expression immediately changed. According to the intelligence, the person who came was clearly just an inspector, but why did he have an Imperial Supervisor token? He quickly thought of someone, Eunuch Gao. Eunuch Gao must be the one who gave the Imperial Supervisor order. He wanted to temporarily take over the power of the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai County. If Chao Peng handed over his authority, then he would have completely offended General Manager Li, and the consequences would be unimaginable. However, there was also a matter that gave Chao Peng a headache. Should he kneel or not? From an official's position he should kneel, but if he kneeled, it would be the same as admitting defeat. If Leng Shiqi wanted to take over his authority, then he would have no leeway. Just as he was struggling, Leng Shiqi suddenly smiled, like a family member who hadn't come home for a long time. His smile was so bright. "I was just joking, don't take it seriously." Oh. Chao Peng almost choked to death with a mouthful of old blood. His face was also a bit red. This humble one is Chao Peng, temporarily acting as an inspector. These people are Zhuqi, Wen Rensheng and Shi Qing. He bowed to Leng Shiqi and introduced the three great inspectors. Leng Shiqi greeted them warmly. Compared to the cold and indifferent attitude he had before, it was as if he was a completely different person. This made the four of them unsure of Leng Shiqi's personality. They invited Leng Shiqi into the discussion hall and let him sit at the top. Chao Peng consciously sat below. Leng Shiqi saw the four people secretly giving each other glances. He laughed in his heart. It seemed like it was wise for him to come early. He asked, "Lord Chao, when I came in, I saw that there were many Dark Thunder Guards here. Everyone knows that the 29 guards under me have just been reorganized and have limited manpower. The Thunder Destruction Alliance is getting stronger day by day, so..." He purposely dragged out his words. Chao Peng's back was instantly covered in a layer of cold sweat. The thing he was most afraid of still came. It came so quickly that he didn't even have time to think of what to do. Luckily, there were people peeking in from outside as if they had something to report. Chao Peng seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw. He shouted, "What are you doing? Can't you see that we're in the middle of a discussion?" The Dark Thunder Guard raised a dark red invitation and hesitantly said, "Lords, not long after you came in, a disciple of the Benevolence Pavilion sent an invitation to the 100 Sect Martial Competition. Please take a look." 100 Sect Martial Competition? Chao Peng thought for a moment. There really was such a thing in Shantai County recently, and the scale was not small. He secretly glanced at Leng Shiqi, stepped forward to receive the invitation and said, "Got it, you can leave." Then he opened the invitation and explained, "Lord Lu, this is your first time in Shantai County, so you might not know about the 100 Sect Martial Competition." The moment he opened his mouth, he started to talk about the origin of the 100 Sect Martial Competition. At the same time, he was also trying to buy time for the other three to think of a way. The 100 Sect Martial Competition is organized by the Benevolence Pavilion, a special power. It is held once every 5 years and it is already the 10th time. The reason why the Benevolence Pavilion is special is because, strictly speaking, this power is not considered a spirit cultivator sect, but an organization without any restrictions. There are no official disciples inside, and as long as one has the Benevolence Writ, they are considered a member of this power. The Benevolence Pavilion can digest a large amount of resources on their own, and take what they need. As long as you pay the corresponding price, you can even get a high-level cultivation technique. Many of the higher-ups or disciples of the spirit cultivator sects have joined the Benevolence Pavilion, so the Benevolence Pavilion has the qualifications and power to organize the 100 Sect Martial Competition. Since Lord Lu is here, why don't you take a look? This can be considered a rare occasion in Shantai County. Chao Peng said a lot in one breath, but Leng Shiqi was not interested. What did this have to do with him? However, he could tell that Chao Peng was stalling for time, so he did not interrupt. He wanted to see what other tricks the four of them could come up with. Chao Peng secretly glanced at the other three, and realized that they were like ants on a hot pan, and their minds were in a mess. They could not be counted on. "Lord Lu, the 100 Sect Martial Competition will also invite many famous people in Shantai County. It would be good for us to go and make friends with them. Who knows, we might even be able to find out some information about the Thunder Extermination Alliance. For example, this year's competition will be..." Chao Peng continued, and when he saw the first name on the invitation, his eyes lit up. He immediately knelt down and said loudly, "Lord Lu, please listen to me." Chapter 544. Chao Peng's sudden action startled Zhuqi and the other two. Even Leng Shiqi was surprised. He knew what Chao Peng was going to say next was the main point. "Why aren't you kneeling?" Chao Peng yelled at the three. After everyone knelt, Chao Peng said, "My lord, to be honest, last night Chief Steward Li Juqing personally ordered me to do something." When he said this, Zhuqi and the other two looked terrified. Was Chao Peng crazy? How dare he say this? Is that so? Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows and smiled. Then tell me what it is. It's like this, Chief Steward Li wants us to not be of any help to my lord. Chao Peng seemed to have used all his strength to finish this sentence. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes. He looked at Chao Peng and secretly thought that someone who could become an inspector was not simple. He asked, then why are you telling me this? Do you know that if Chief Steward Li finds out, you won't just lose your posts? He was right. Chao Peng and the other three were thinking the same thing. Chief Steward Li's bad temper was well known. If this matter was exposed, the four of them would probably become dead men. Chao Peng took a deep breath and said, your humble servant's words carry little weight. We do not dare to get involved in the game between the two head chiefs. So I can only tell you frankly that all the Dark Thunder Guards in Shantai County cannot be mobilized by my lord. Zhuqi and the other two's eyes almost popped out. Even if Chao Peng was going to do this, he couldn't say it out loud. Wasn't this courting death? But Chao Peng's tone changed. But I can help my lord find a way to get more people from other places. Leng Shiqi stared at Chao Peng with interest. At this time Chao Peng's face was covered in sweat. He was staking everything on this one throw. Regardless of whether it was Li Jueqing or Eunuch Gao, he could not afford to offend either of them. Since that was the case, he had to satisfy both sides. He could prevent Leng Shiqi from using the Dark Thunder Guards, but he could use other methods to get some of the power. This was indeed a way to get the best of both worlds. Zhuqi and the other two also secretly gave him a thumbs up. However, there was still one key point, and that was whether Leng Shiqi agreed or not. After all, the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai County were not weak. 4 of them were in the Gang Spirit realm, so they were powerful enough. The meeting hall instantly quieted down, leaving only the heavy breathing of a few people. They were all waiting for Leng Shiqi's reply. Out of habit, Leng Shiqi tapped the armrest of the chair with his finger, increasing the psychological pressure on the others. After a full 30 minutes, he opened his mouth and said, "Get up first and tell me the details." Hearing this, Chao Peng and the other 3 felt as if they had been granted amnesty. He said with joy, "Thank you for your understanding, Your Excellency. Please look at the names of the distinguished guests at the bottom of the invitation, especially the first one." Leng Shiqi took the invitation and saw that there were indeed 2 rows of distinguished guests at the bottom. Chao Peng was among them, but he was ranked 4th. And the first one was the Slaughtering King. The Slaughtering King's real name is Lei Haoge. He is the 7th son of His Majesty, Chao Peng explained. Leng Shiqi snorted. He is an idle prince who is not valued. Your Excellency is wise. Leng Shiqi had originally thought that the Slaughtering King was from the same generation as His Majesty, but when Chao Peng said that he was actually the 7th prince, Leng Shiqi knew that the Slaughtering King was not well received. If a prince was made king, it would be a great honor. It meant that His Majesty valued him very much. But if he was made king and given land, the nature of the matter was completely different. Since he was given his own land, it meant that the Slaughtering King was no longer destined for the throne. That was why Leng Shiqi was so sure that the Slaughtering King was a disdained prince. Chao Peng continued, "However, the Slaughtering King is not content with being an idle prince. He came to Shantai County when he was a teenager, and it has been 7 or 8 years since then. He has never stopped cultivating spirit cultivators. Especially in the last 2 or 3 years, he has been in close contact with third-rate sections. It is clear that he has some ambition. It is because of this that this lowly subordinate thought of using the Slaughtering King." Hearing the words "using the Slaughtering King," Leng Shiqi's mind raced. Chao Peng's meaning was clear. He wanted Leng Shiqi and the Slaughtering King to work together against the Thunder Extermination Alliance. This way, Leng Shiqi would be able to complete his mission, and the Slaughtering King would be able to raise his reputation. It was a win-win situation. However, Leng Shiqi still had 2 questions. Then how much power does the Slaughtering King have? If it's just a bunch of crooked melons, then forget it. Also, what makes you think that he will work with me? Milord, please listen to me. Chao Peng already had an idea. The Slaughtering King has an old eunuch by his side, Eunuch He, who is at the peak of the spirit astral realm. Aside from him, there is also a guest at the early stage of the spirit astral realm, and a conservative estimate of 7 or 8 at the spirit aperture realm. In addition, the Slaughtering King wants to rope in some third-rate sects, but he has no reputation at all. To be honest, they all look down on the Slaughtering King. If he works with Milord to get rid of the Thunder Extermination Alliance, his reputation will soar. That is exactly what he wants. Leng Shiqi tilted his head. It seems that Lord Chao is quite familiar with the Slaughtering King. Ah. Chao Peng's heart skipped a beat. He laughed dryly. Yes, we have met a few times, haha. Leng Shiqi didn't want to get involved in Chao Peng's private affairs. What you said is not impossible, but the slaughtering king must agree to work with me and obey my orders. Otherwise there is no need to talk about it. You will also have to hand over the dark lightning guards. Do you understand? This humble servant understands. This humble servant will go see the slaughtering king tomorrow. No. Leng Shiqi shook his head. I want to go with you. Qiao Peng had said so much, so it was better to see for himself. If the slaughtering king's subordinates were a bunch of good-for-nothings, then there was no point in working with him. Qiao Peng guessed Leng Shiqi's thoughts and didn't refuse. At this point, Leng Shiqi laughed again. His laughter sent chills down the spines of Qiao Peng and the others. In reality, Leng Shiqi could completely ignore Qiao Peng and the others' concerns and directly use the internal supervisor token to take control of the Dark Lightning Guards. Even if Qiao Peng and the others couldn't move, with a large number of Spirit Aperture Realm experts involved, the mission would be much easier. And the reason he had agreed to work with Qiao Peng and the Slaughtering King was because he had gone through so much trouble. If you want to live peacefully in the conflict between the two Grand Managers, fine. But as the saying goes, spend money to avoid disaster. You should understand what I mean. Chapter 545. At this moment, the Slaughtering King Lei Haoge was rubbing his temples in the Slaughtering King's Manor in Shantai County. He had been exiled to the remote Shantai County when he was a teenager, far away from the center of power in the imperial capital. It had been a few years since then. The princes in the imperial capital were all preparing to fight for the throne, and the forces behind them were growing stronger by the day. Some of them had even monopolized power in the imperial capital. Meanwhile, he himself was wasting his time in this remote village. His cultivation progressed slowly and his forces did not improve at all. This made him, a young man in his 20s, feel like an old man. In reality, he could not be blamed for not living up to expectations. Although he was born in the imperial family, his life was indeed a little short compared to the other princes. His birth mother's identity was not ordinary either. She was the daughter of a general, and her name was known throughout the world. However, not long after Lei Haoge was born, the Thunderfire dynasty and the Starfall dynasty had a conflict, and the Thunderfire dynasty was defeated. The main reason for their defeat was that someone had leaked military secrets, and that person was Lei Haoge's grandfather. Regardless of whether this was true or not, Lei Haoge and his mother were still implicated in the end. His birth mother could not bear the humiliation and committed suicide. Lei Haoge was chased out of the imperial capital before he even reached adulthood, which led to his current situation. Ai Hidei, do you think I should give up? Even being an idle prince for the rest of my life is not bad, Lei Haoge said to the old eunuch beside him with a worried expression. The old eunuch Hidei was the only protection his birth mother had left him. Hidei was actually not very old. He was only 40 or 50 years old, but judging from his appearance he looked to be in his 70s or 80s. It was said that Hidei had followed Lei Haoge's birth mother in the great general's manor. Later on, he even castrated himself to continue protecting her. It was because of this that something went wrong with his cultivation technique, which greatly reduced his lifespan. It could be said that Hidei had single-handedly raised Lei Haoge. His feelings for Lei Haoge could not be described with just a few words. When he saw Lei Haoge like this, he hurriedly said, "Your Highness, please don't think like this. Since ancient times, the battle for the throne has not been something you can withdraw from just because you want to. Even if you want to be an idle prince for the rest of your life, I'm afraid that others will not agree. In the future, no matter who ascends to the throne, everyone else will be eliminated. Your Highness, as the current 7th prince, will definitely be on the list. Unless you become a complete cripple without the slightest bit of threat to the other party, then you can barely keep your life. But are you willing to be a cripple?" Lei Haoge shook his head. No one wanted to be trash, but compared to the other brothers he was indeed a bit of trash. There was nothing he could do about it. He had been kicked to Shantai County early on. He had no resources and no connections. The cultivation of his forces was very slow. He could not be compared to those princes in the imperial capital. However, Hidei said, "Your Highness, don't worry. Those sects have already begun to waver. As long as they submit, we will have a foundation. In the future, our forces will only develop faster and faster." Only then did Lei Haoge's complexion improve slightly. However, at this moment, a servant ran in and said, "Your Highness, the acting Dark Thunder Guard of Shantai County, Qiao Peng, and the inspector from the imperial capital, Lu Xingji, request an audience." Lei Haoge and Hidei looked at each other, and a trace of doubt flashed through their eyes. They were familiar with Qiao Peng. They had secretly tried to rope him in, but his attitude was not very clear. As for the name Lu Xingji, it sounded very unfamiliar. Lei Haoge had never heard of it at all. However, they were not unfamiliar with the title of inspector. He was a real power figure in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard. Why did he come here? Hidei was suddenly surprised and said, I think I've heard of Lu Xingji before. It was just a few days ago. He seems to be this year's elite association's chief, and was even taken in by eunuch Gao as his disciple. He is the most dazzling genius in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard. Lei Haoge was also surprised when he heard this. So, Lu Xingji is really an extremely rare talent. But why did he come to Shantai County? Why did he come to find me? Your Highness, this is a good opportunity. If such a talent can be accepted by your Highness, the benefits will be beyond imagination. Hidei was more far-sighted. But how could he? Well, I should give it a try. Lei Haoge ordered, go and invite them to the reception room. They walked to the reception room. Lei Haoge asked, Hidei, what else do you know about Lu Xingji? Tell me all about it. I don't know much. It is said that he is very powerful. When he was in the middle stage of the spiritual aperture realm, he could kill a master in the middle stage of the gang spirit realm. How could it be? Lei Haoge exclaimed. He didn't even dare to imagine that Lu Xingji could kill a master in a higher realm. Eunuch, he continued, not only that, your Highness, do you know who he killed? Oh. Lei Haoge vaguely felt that it was not simple. Hidei looked dignified. The one he killed was also the inspector of the Dark Thunder Guard, Wei Xiangming. What? He dared to kill the inspector? He was one of us. Lei Haoge was also frightened by Leng Shiqi's crazy actions. Who said he wasn't? But he is still alive and well, so this Lu Xingji is extremely crazy. I don't know why he came to your Highness. Your Highness, you should be careful with your words later. Got it? Lei Haoge hadn't completely digested the information about Lu Xingji when they arrived at the reception room. Seeing the two coming out of the reception room, Leng Shiqi and Xiao Peng stood up and said, Greetings, your Highness. Greetings, your Highness. Their reactions were completely different. Xiao Peng half knelt on the ground while Leng Shiqi just cupped his hands. Although seen and seen seemed similar, there was a great deal of difference. Leng Shiqi's words and actions immediately made Lei Haoge and Eunuch's faces turn ugly. They looked at Xiao Peng. As the acting inspector, he had to kneel in front of the slaughtering king. Why didn't he kneel? Even if Lei Haoge was a prince who was disliked, he was still a prince. This was the difference between a ruler and a subject. For Leng Shiqi to speak to the slaughtering king as if he was talking to an equal meant that he didn't care about Lei Haoge at all. Xiao Peng's heart clenched. He raised his head to look at Leng Shiqi. He didn't know what Leng Shiqi was doing, but they were here to ally with him. At the very least, he should be polite. Moreover, as subjects, they still had to abide by the rules that they should abide by. Hidei said in a low voice, Lord Lu, is it? As a member of the imperial court, you should know best how inferior the exalted one is. Do you think the slaughtering king is someone you can offend? Hurry up and kneel. Leng Shiqi didn't seem to care. He spread his hands and said, Eunuch, you're mistaken. Please forgive me for being blunt, but this useless prince who lives in a remote corner of the country and who knows when he will be eliminated. It's fine if I don't kneel. As soon as he said this, the living room immediately fell into silence. Chapter 546. How dare you? After a moment of silence, Hidei furiously attacked. Using his palm as a knife, a gust of ghastly gang chi burst out. A gust of chilly wind whistled in the meeting hall, making one's hair stand on end. As the gang chi approached, Leng Shiqi clenched his fist, and a dazzling holy light burst out. A bright Buddha lotus as tall as a man appeared, forcing the evil spirit to retreat. As soon as the Buddha lotus appeared, the ghastly gang chi dissipated like snow under the scorching sun. If Leng Shiqi hadn't entered the dragon vein, he would have had a hard time dealing with Hidei, who was at the peak of gang spirit realm. But now, Leng Shiqi was not only at the half-step gang spirit realm, but also had opened up all the spirit meridians and spirit cavities in his body. The increase in power was definitely unprecedented. Therefore he easily resolved Hidei's attack. Hidei looked at the bright Buddhist lotus with a strong sense of fear in his eyes. In addition, he clearly remembered that Leng Shiqi's cultivation should be at the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm, but now he was clearly at the half-step gang spirit realm. The speed of his progress was shocking. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to offend such a genius, but he still said coldly, I've long heard of Lord Lu's outstanding strength. Today I see that you live up to your reputation. No matter how strong you are as a mere envoy inspector, you can't insult the slaughtering king. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let you leave the slaughtering king's residence. Hidei pulled out a dagger from his sleeve, looking like he was going to risk his life. Lung Shiqi shook his head slightly. Eunuch He, there's no need to be so angry. The Starfall continent has always respected strength. I'm not bragging, but in the Slaughtering King's residence, only you can make me take you seriously. As you said, you have to risk your life to keep me, a mere envoy inspector, here. It's obvious that the Slaughtering King's residence's strength is hard to respect. If you want others to respect, you must have strength, and I can help you win fame and respect. Eunuch He's dagger almost stabbed out. Hearing this, he paused and looked at Lung Shiqi suspiciously. However, he didn't intend to attack again. Chao Peng was already drenched in cold sweat. He never dreamed that Lung Shiqi would use this method to propose cooperation. Logically speaking, Lung Shiqi should be more aware of his position if he was looking for someone to work with. However, Lung Shiqi had directly challenged the Slaughtering King's authority. What was this? Just a moment ago he thought he was going to die here. He thought to himself that the thoughts of a genius were indeed not something a mortal like him could understand. It was also the first time that Lei Haoge and Eunuch He had met someone like Lung Shiqi who didn't play by the rules. The reason why Lung Shiqi did this was, of course, to show his strength and potential, and to fully demonstrate his value. At the same time, it also pointed out the biggest problem the Slaughtering King's manor currently faced: their lack of strength. The Slaughtering King's manor seemed to be comparable to an ordinary second-rate sect, but it was still far from being comparable to the princes of the imperial capital. For example, the 13th prince he saw at the auction. His guards were all at unity with the world, and his maidservants were all at the spirit aperture realm. A single guard from the 13th prince could wipe out the entire Slaughtering King's manor. The difference between them was simply too great. Lung Shiqi's actions were simple and straightforward. He didn't have to say a lot of things and the others wouldn't believe him. Eunuch He turned his gaze to Lei Haoge. Naturally, this kind of decision should be made by the Slaughtering King. Lei Haoge waved his hand to signal Eunuch He to stop. His face was gloomy as he said, "Sir Lu, you must have some tricky mission since you've come all the way to Shantai County." Lung Shiqi saw that Lei Haoge wasn't as useless as the rumors made him out to be. He didn't hide anything and said, "That's right. My mission is to eliminate the Thunder League." The Thunder League. Lei Haoge had been hearing this name a lot recently. The Thunder League had caused quite a commotion recently, and this was the second time the Dark Thunder Guard had made a move. Chao Peng knew that it was time for him to take the stage. He coughed dryly to draw everyone's attention, then began to explain the pros and cons of the matter. "Slaughtering King, this is a win-win situation. We can definitely work together." Hidei seemed to have noticed something and secretly transmitted a few words to Lei Haoge. Lei Haoge immediately sneered. "Lord Chao, with your strength and the 29th Guard Squad, dealing with the Thunder League shouldn't be a problem, right? However, it seems like you don't plan on working together." This. Chao Peng wanted to explain, but Lung Shiqi interrupted him. "This is a private matter between me and Lord Chao. I only have one question. Do you agree or not, Slaughtering King? You should know that there are many sects in Shantai County who want to use this opportunity to raise their reputation." Lei Haoge's face darkened. Lung Shiqi was threatening him. However, Lung Shiqi's words were not false. The Thunder League had completely stood on the opposite side of the Thunderblaze dynasty. For those sects that had a close relationship with the dynasty, eliminating the Thunder Destroyer League was also a great merit. They could also earn a lot of prestige. Lung Shiqi indeed had more choices. Hidei's expression tightened. He hurriedly said, "Lord Lu, how much power do you have? If it's still the same level as the 29th Guard Squad, then let's not talk about this cooperation. Last time the 29th Guard Squad came here, they were almost completely wiped out. This was a well-known fact. 15 Battle Thunder Guard elites in the middle and late stages of the Spirit Aperture Realm, a spiritual caster in the early stages of the Astral Spirit Realm, a master in the middle stages of the Astral Spirit Realm, plus me," Lung Shiqi said as he tidied up his sleeves. His tone was very calm, but his words were full of confidence. Hearing this, not only Hidei and Lei Haoge, but even Chao Peng's eyes widened. This kind of combat power was already comparable to the top experts of a second-rate sect. Since when did the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters have such powerful equipment? To tell you the truth, the 29th Guard Squad definitely has the upper hand in terms of combat power. The only problem I feel is that there are too many spiritual Pulse Realm disciples in the Thunder League. It's inevitable that some of them will slip through the net. What the Slaughtering King's mansion needs to do is to encircle and annihilate those spiritual Pulse Realm disciples. You don't need to do much. If you don't want to, there are many sects that are willing to help." Lung Shiqi's tone was full of arrogance. He was pressuring Lei Haoge. Whether it was his identity, potential, strength, or power, he was very strong. He was so strong that Lei Haoge had to pay attention to him. The more arrogant and unyielding he was, the more confidence he had. This way, Lei Haoge would be more likely to cooperate with him. If he spoke humbly, it would make Lei Haoge feel that he was not confident enough. Lei Haoge fell silent. At the same time, Hidei continued to transmit messages to him, as if they were discussing something. Leng Shiqi wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he asked for a cup of tea and leisurely sipped it. After 15 minutes, Lei Haoge gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, this king is willing to cooperate with Lord Lu. Very good. Your Highness, the slaughtering king has made the right decision. When the time comes, I will send someone to contact you. Farewell." Leng Shiqi saw that the matter was settled and left without hesitation. Chao Peng was still a little dazed. He hurriedly bowed to Lei Haoge before following him out. Hidei watched Leng Shiqi leave with a sigh. This kid is definitely not a fish in a pond. In the future he will become a major figure who can shake the world. In truth, there was one thing that he kept to himself. Whether it was talent, strength, or shrewdness, Leng Shiqi was far superior to Lei Haoge. He couldn't even compare. He sighed inwardly. Even if Lei Haoge was half as outstanding as Leng Shiqi, he still wouldn't be an idle king here. Outside the slaughtering king's residence, Chao Peng finally came to his senses. He was naturally delighted. "Lord Lu, let's go back and celebrate." "No, I still have matters to attend to. I will find you after this." With that, Leng Shiqi left. The place he was heading to was the Blood Cloak Pavilion branch in Shantai Prefecture. Chapter 547. There were large and small hills everywhere in Shantai County. 2 days later, Leng Shiqi changed his appearance and came to a nameless hill. He had gone to the branch of the Blood Cloak Pavilion to inquire about the Thunder Extermination Alliance. Unfortunately, the Blood Cloak Pavilion did not know where the headquarters of the Thunder Extermination Alliance was. The good news was that the branch knew a stronghold of the Thunder Extermination Alliance. In other words, it was on this nameless hill. Leng Shiqi opened his supercilious eyes and soon found the specific location of the stronghold. It was a cave near the cliff, which was really hidden. Judging by the aura of spiritual power, there were about 30 or 40 people in this stronghold. Most of them were in the spiritual pulse realm, several in the spiritual aperture realm, and one in the middle stage of the gang spirit realm. The strength of this stronghold was far stronger than that of an ordinary third-rate sect. It seemed that the Thunder Extermination Alliance was constantly growing during this period. The reason why Leng Shiqi came here was, of course, not to clean up this stronghold. First of all, he was not so arrogant that he could destroy a stronghold by himself. Although he believed that he could do it, someone would definitely escape. At that time he would alert the enemy. He came here mainly to inquire about information. Leng Shiqi was 10 miles away from the cave, observing every move of those people with his supercilious eyes, waiting for an opportunity. If there were no masters in the gang spirit realm, he could use the earth to sneak in and eavesdrop. However, the spirit cultivators in the gang spirit realm had strong perception and could sense the slight fluctuation of spiritual power, so he could only be passive. Until late at night, someone finally came out of the cave. This person walked out of the cave and drilled into a pile of weeds. It seemed that he had to go to the toilet. Leng Shiqi knew that the opportunity had come. When the person just came out of the cave and was about to go to the toilet, he suddenly found several green bugs flying over. What kind of bugs are these? How come I have never seen them before? The person paused for a moment and did not care much. However, he did not expect that the bugs began to dance around him. Normally he would be happy, but now he had to go to the toilet. It was a little awkward to be surrounded by bugs. He waved his hand and swatted the insects away. This action seemed to have angered the insects. They immediately bared their sharp fangs and pounced on him. Scram! The man impatiently released his spiritual pressure, wanting to directly crush these insects to death. But what was unexpected was that these insects actually ignored his spiritual pressure and pounced on him one after another, fiercely biting him. Although the bug was small, when he bit down on it, the numbing pain caused sweat to form on his face. At the same time he flew into a rage. Where did this damn bug come from? Just as he was about to catch all the insects in one fell swoop, the insects cleverly turned around and flew away. The man furiously chased after them. At the same time, a man with black and white hair in the cave opened his eyes and looked at the entrance of the cave in confusion. He muttered, "What the hell is Kong Fong doing?" "Lord Su, don't mind him. He likes to make a fuss," a person beside him said submissively. And this person was the great supervisor who betrayed the Dark Thunder Guards, Su Jun. "Let him be." Su Jun continued to close his eyes. Outside the cave, Kong Fong chased after the insects for 2 miles. Just as he was about to catch up, a thick gray fog suddenly appeared in front of him. Before he could react, he saw 2 5-colored streams of light flash through the fog. His eyes suddenly became blurred. "Kneel." Lung Shichi's voice sounded. Kong Fong didn't hesitate at all and directly knelt down. He even prostrated himself on the ground as if he was praying to God. This was naturally Lung Shichi using the 5-god soul intimidation technique to instantly control him. "What's your name?" "Kong Fong," he said sluggishly. "Cultivation realm?" "Spirit pulse realm level 7. "What's your identity?" When Lung Shichi asked this question, Kong Fong's expression actually showed some struggle. In the end, he expressionlessly said, "Benevolence Pavilion member." Lung Shichi's heart became suspicious. Wasn't this a secret stronghold of the Thunder Extermination Union? Why would Kong Fong say that he was a member of the Benevolence Pavilion? He thought about the Benevolence Pavilion that Xiaoping mentioned before. This power was not purely a spirit cultivator sect. Many sect members were also members of the Benevolence Pavilion. Maybe this Kong Fong was the same. Lung Shichi pondered for a moment and continued to ask, "What's your relationship with the Thunder Extermination Union?" "I'm a disciple of the Thunder Extermination Union." Since he was a disciple of the Thunder Extermination Union, why would he mention the Benevolence Pavilion? Lung Shichi had an idea. A seemingly absurd idea appeared in his mind. He asked in a deep voice, "What's the relationship between the Thunder Extermination Union and the Benevolence Pavilion?" Kong Fong's eyes suddenly widened as if he had encountered something extremely terrifying. The blurred look in his eyes also faded a little. Lung Shichi was also very surprised. His mental strength was extremely strong. It was too easy for him to control Kong Fong, who was in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. But at this moment, Kong Fong actually showed signs of breaking free from the illusion. It could be seen that this person was extremely afraid of this problem. Lung Shichi snorted. His enormous mental strength continued to surge, causing Kong Fong's eyes to become sluggish once again. Only then did he say stiffly, "The Thunder Extermination Union is the Benevolence Pavilion." Hearing this, Lung Shichi could not help but reveal a shocked expression. Although he had similar guesses before, when these words came out of Kong Fong's mouth, it still gave Lung Shichi a huge shock. The infamous Thunder Extermination Union in Shantai County was actually the world-renowned Benevolence Pavilion. Even if he were to tell others about this, no one would believe him. Thinking about it this way, it was no wonder that the Thunder Extermination Union was able to force the great supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards to defect. It was no wonder that they could hide so perfectly. Under the cover of Su Jun and the Benevolence Pavilion, even the Blood Clothing Pavilion could not find the Thunder Extermination Union's lair. That was because the Thunder Extermination Union's lair was the Benevolence Pavilion. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that in a few days, the 100-sect martial competition held by the Benevolence Pavilion would begin. At that time, there would be many spirit cultivator sects participating, and there would be many distinguished guests. It could be said that the 100-sect martial competition had gathered more than half of the spirit cultivator forces in Shantai County. Would the Benevolence Pavilion, or rather, the Thunder Extermination Union, use this times 100-sect martial competition to cause some trouble? Or perhaps, this 100-sect martial competition was planned by them. The more he thought about it, the more Lung Shichi felt that something was amiss. This matter seemed to have exceeded his expectations, and also exceeded the scope of his abilities. Just the 29 guards alone was not enough to deal with this matter. This matter had to be reported as soon as possible. Lung Shichi asked coldly, "What exactly do you want to do at the 100-sect martial competition?" "I don't know." Kong Fong was only at the Spirit Pulse stage after all, and could not come into contact with the core secrets of the Thunder Extermination Union. Lung Shichi did not probe further, and then asked Kong Fong a few unimportant questions to dispel the fear in his heart, so as to not reveal any flaws. "Go back, nothing happened tonight." "Yes." After settling Kong Fong, Lung Shichi rushed back to Shantai County's Dark Thunder Manor with his fastest speed to make arrangements. Chapter 548. A few days later, the 100-sect martial competition was held as scheduled. The location was in an empty valley near the Benevolence Pavilion. At this time, the valley was already filled with people. In the center of the valley there were dozens of huge arenas. Every arena was supported by an array. In the east of the valley there were 3 levels of white jade thrones. At this time there were already dozens of people sitting on them. Those who had the qualifications to sit on the highest level were at least the sect leaders or elders of second-rate sections. Those who were not qualified could only sit on the lower 2 levels. In reality, the lower 2 levels had the most people. Although this 100-sect martial meet was called 100 sects, in reality, there were at most 30 to 40 spirit cultivation sects that could participate. Among them, 70% were third-rate sects, and 20% were rogue cultivators. These people could only sit at the lowest level. At this time, Leng Shiqi, Feng Xiaimo and Qiao Peng stepped onto the highest level of the Jade platform. Feng Xiaimo and the rest had arrived at Dark Thunder Manor 2 days ago. They did not stay for a moment and directly came to participate in the 100-sect martial competition. However, Leng Shiqi and Feng Xiaimo did not sit down. Instead, they stood behind Qiao Peng. What was worth mentioning was that the two of them purposely hid their cultivation and only revealed their spirit aperture middle stage cultivation. The two of them did not have an invitation. Fortunately, every VIP could bring 2 people in, so they acted as Qiao Peng's subordinates. Qiao Peng was currently chatting with the people around him. In reality, when he first found out that Leng Shiqi was coming to participate in the 100-sect martial competition, he was also very suspicious. At that time, although he tried his best to explain to Leng Shiqi how lively the 100-sect martial competition was, it had nothing to do with the Thunder Extermination Union. He was sure that Leng Shiqi would not come. However, it was the exact opposite. Leng Shiqi actually took the initiative to come. Qiao Peng was not stupid. He knew that Leng Shiqi's mission was to eliminate the Thunder Extermination Union. How would he have the time to participate in the 100-sect martial competition? He secretly guessed that this 100-sect martial competition might be related to the Thunder Extermination Union. There might even be some accidents. In particular, he had helped Leng Shiqi send a letter to the slaughtering king Lei Haoge. Although he did not know the contents of the letter, Leng Shiqi and the slaughtering king had teamed up to deal with the Thunder Extermination Alliance. Therefore, he was even more certain that the 100-sect martial meeting was related to the Thunder Extermination Alliance. Therefore, even though he appeared to be extremely happy and in high spirits, he was actually still secretly worried that he would not be implicated. With the arrival of the distinguished guests, the atmosphere in the valley became more and more lively. The slaughtering king has arrived. At this moment, a loud voice rang out. Shua. Everybody's eyes immediately turned to the entrance of the valley. Lei Haoge was walking over steadily, accompanied by eunuch He. There was a warm smile on his face like a spring breeze, but it looked a little fake, like he was wearing a mask. The organizer of the 100-sect martial meeting, the pavilion master of the Benevolence Pavilion, Qi Likun, immediately welcomed Lei Haoge with a smile and led him to the head seat of the Jade platform. Even though Lei Haoge was an idle prince and his cultivation was unsightly, his identity was his identity and could not be neglected. But before Qi Likun could say anything to Lei Haoge, a voice came from outside. Discipline Board's town protector, Lord Xianhuan has arrived. Hearing this, the valley instantly quietened down. Many people had astonished expressions on their faces. The people from the Discipline Board are here too? So what if the Dark Thunder Guards are here? In any case, we're just here to see them make a fool of themselves. Why are the people from the Discipline Board here? Silence. That's also the town protector Xianhuan, a great expert at the Unity of Heaven realm. Qi Likun's face also stiffened slightly. It must be said that the Spirit Cultivator sect hated the Dark Thunder Guards the most. However, the reason why he invited the Dark Thunder Guards this time was because the Dark Thunder Guards had made a lot of fools recently. He originally thought that Qiao Peng would not come. And the Discipline Board was an existence that was directly opposed to the various large sections. Of course, no one would be happy for them to come to the 100-sect martial meeting. However, Qi Likun had never invited Xianhuan, which meant that he came uninvited. Xianhuan did not come alone. Behind him, there was a youth with a jade crown who was at the first level of the spirit astral realm. He was Zhuge. Zhuge was previously the most dazzling genius in Shantai County. Everyone recognized him. Seeing his spirit astral realm aura, they all praised him. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows and was slightly surprised. Before coming to Shantai County, Li Jueqing had said that he would contact the Discipline Board to send some people. After Leng Shiqi came to the Dark Thunder Manor, he no longer believed it. Even the Dark Thunder Guards were not allowed to use their own strength, let alone the people from the Discipline Board. However, after he found out that the Thunder Destruction Alliance was the Benevolence Pavilion, he immediately sent a message to Eunuch Gao. He received the news that Eunuch Gao would send experts to help him. But Leng Shiqi did not expect that Eunuch Gao would send people from the Discipline Board. And it was the Discipline Commissioner. As one of the 4 directors of the Dark Thunder Guards, Eunuch Gao certainly had a high position in the Dark Thunder Guards. But he could mobilize the discipline commissioner of Shantai County, which was worth pondering. Of course, Leng Shiqi did not want to dig into eunuch Gao's affairs. Now that Zhan Rui, a grandmaster in the oneness of heaven and men realm, was here, it was a reassuring pill for him. He was more confident about today's plan. Zhuge Puha also saw Leng Shiqi. He had reached the spirit astral realm and could condense his voice into a line. He transmitted the voice, "Brother Liu? I received the task of assisting the 29 guards to wipe out the Thunder Destruction Alliance. I came here alone, but I didn't expect Lord Zhan to take me to the 100 Schools Martial Competition to see the world. I didn't expect to meet Brother Liu." Leng Shiqi instantly understood. Li Jueqing did not break his promise. He did communicate with the discipline board, but he only sent one person over, which was Zhuge Puha. Zhan Rui should know the truth, which was why he brought Zhuge Puha over. Zhan Rui's figure was tall. He wore a set of heavy armor and his body was filled with killing intent. He was like an experienced general. He shouted, "What? Do you still want me to stand here?" Qi Likun immediately welcomed him with a warm smile. "Lord Zhan has come from afar. Your presence brings light to my humble dwelling. Please come in." Zhan Rui snorted and walked towards the jade platform. Every step he took, he would leave a deep imprint on the ground. It was obvious that he did not come with good intentions. This caused many spirit cultivators to be shrouded in a faint shadow. They did not know if Zhan Rui was here to find trouble. When all the guests were seated, Qi Likun stood in the center of the jade platform. He briefly explained the rules of the 100 Schools Martial Competition, which everyone knew. The rules of the 100 Schools Martial Competition were to separate the spirit cultivators from the spirit transformation realm, spirit pulse realm and spirit aperture realm. The top 10 of each realm would obtain a large amount of cultivation resources. At the same time, they would obtain the benevolence writ and become a member of the benevolence pavilion. After a few decades of development, the benefits of the benevolence pavilion had increased. There were more and more people who wanted to join, so the benevolence writ was what everyone wanted. There were over a dozen stages in the valley. Because the spirit transformation realm had the most people, they took up half of the stages. As for the spirit aperture realm, there were only 2 stages. With Qi Likun's command, the 100 Schools Martial Competition officially began. One person leaped onto each stage, waiting for others to challenge them. Very quickly, intense battles began one after another. However, this level of battle was boring to Leng Shiqi, so he closed his eyes and rested. Unexpectedly, his actions were secretly noted down by some people. Following the end of each battle, the spectators would burst into cheers and discussions. The entire valley would become lively. In the afternoon, all the battles in the various stages had basically ended. Only the Spirit Aperture Realm stage was left fighting for the last spot. Everyone's attention was attracted to this battle. In the end, the white-robed man won. As expected, Wen Yuqing won. As expected of the genius disciple of the Sky Crane sect. On the jade platform, the elder beside Chao Peng laughed. This person was Elder Wan of the Sky Crane sect. He glanced at Leng Shiqi, who still had his eyes closed, and said to Chao Peng, "Lord Chao, I see that you have a Spirit Aperture Realm subordinate. Why don't you go up and spar with him?" Chapter 549. Hearing Elder Wan's words, Chao Peng felt a chill on his back. Who was Lu Xingji? He was a madman who had killed an inspector in the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm. His temper was even more unpredictable. If he really joined the fight, the guy in the arena who was at the 8th level of Spirit Aperture Realm might be killed. He turned to look at Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi's eyes were still closed and he was unmoved. His expression angered Elder Wan even more. "Lord Chao, is your subordinate deaf?" Chao Peng trembled slightly. He also knew that Elder Wan just wanted to laugh at the Dark Thunder Guard, but Elder Wan himself didn't know that he was causing a huge trouble. Leng Shiqi finally opened his eyes. He didn't want to complicate things, so he said, "Not interested." Elder Wan saw that he seemed to look down on Wen Yuqing, so he couldn't help but ridicule. "Not interested? I think Wen Yuqing has no interest in fighting with you." Well, I don't want to shame Lord Chao and the Dark Thunder Guard." Hearing this, Chao Peng secretly clenched his fists. Since the previous inspector retired, the Dark Thunder Guard didn't have a master in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. Now these spirit cultivation sects were getting more and more arrogant. Leng Shiqi tilted his head. He suddenly thought that if he could get a Tianren token, he might be able to get in touch with the inside of the Tianren pavilion, which was a good way. Thinking of this, he motioned to Chao Peng and then his figure moved. In the blink of an eye, he appeared directly on the arena. His small display of skill made the crowd cry out in surprise, because there were very few people present who could catch his figure. On the arena, Wen Yuqing was enjoying the envious eyes of the crowd, but he didn't expect that his own elder would cause him a big trouble. Elder Wan's expression also became serious. He was at the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm, but he just saw a phantom which showed how fast Leng Shiqi was. He couldn't help but frown. He seemed to have underestimated this person. Qiao Peng was also nervous. Of course, he wasn't nervous about whether Leng Shiqi would win. He was worried that Leng Shiqi would kill him. Wen Yuqing was the most outstanding genius of the younger generation in the Sky Crane sect. Back then he had competed with Zhuge Puha. If he died at the hands of Leng Shiqi, it would be a big deal. Wen Yuqing looked at Leng Shiqi, who suddenly appeared in front of him, and also acted as if he was facing a great enemy. Unexpectedly, Leng Shiqi suddenly smiled at him and said, "Don't be nervous, it will be over soon." As soon as he said that, Wen Yuqing's expression became a little unnatural, and the people around him also started to jeer. Where did this brat come from? How dare he speak to Wen Yuqing like that? He seems to be from the Dark Thunder Guards. He looks very unfamiliar. Haha, the Dark Thunder Guards have been stirring up a lot of trouble recently. It seems that there will be a good show today. Leng Shiqi used his fingers as a sword, and a blazing sword energy shot out. Wen Yuqing felt the power of the sword energy and laughed inwardly. Deliberately mystifying. As expected, he exposed his mediocre strength as soon as he attacked. Wen Yuqing also shot out a pure white sword energy. The sword energy was accompanied by a loud crane cry, and its momentum was unparalleled. His sword energy instantly destroyed the blazing sword energy and directly pierced Leng Shiqi's body. Dead. Everyone was also stunned. He couldn't have died just like that, right? They wanted to see the Dark Thunder Guards make a fool of themselves, but if someone died, they would definitely attract endless anger from the Dark Thunder Guards. Wen Yuqing immediately sensed that something was wrong because his sword energy didn't hit the real body at all. The Leng Shiqi just now was a fake body. Wen Yuqing was shocked, but before he could react, the blazing sword energy had already pierced his back. Wen Yuqing immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. He looked at his wound in disbelief. He still didn't know when Leng Shiqi had run behind him. He couldn't believe that he had died in such a cowardly manner. He still had many life-saving trump cards that he hadn't used. The key was that he never thought that his opponent would kill him. Just like that, Wen Yuqing fell down with boundless unwillingness. Everyone who saw this scene widened their eyes. How was it possible to kill Wen Yuqing in one move? Not only were they shocked by Leng Shiqi's strength, they were even more shocked by his courage. In front of Sky Crane Sect's Elder Wan, he killed Wen Yuqing, the most outstanding genius of the Sky Crane Sect. Did he eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts? What was the background of this person? Moreover, the rules of the 100 Sects martial competition were to stop when it came to a certain point. There had never been a case of someone dying. This was a precedent. Then what would Elder Wan do? Everyone felt that there would be a storm coming. Elder Wan was also startled. How could he have expected that the battle would end so quickly, and the result would be so unexpected? How dare you? Elder Wan roared, he bared his teeth, his hair stood up in anger. His entire body erupted with a powerful pure white true dipper spirit chi, and slashed towards Leng Shiqi. When Qiao Peng saw that Leng Shiqi had personally come down, he had already prepared for the worst. The result was as he had expected, so he was already prepared to make a move. He took out a long fan and waved it lightly, causing a storm to rise between heaven and earth, continuously melting the pure white true dipper spirit chi. Elder Wan, you've lost face by attacking a junior, Qiao Peng said coldly. Elder Wan was incomparably furious and shouted, Qiao Peng scram. Today I will definitely kill this bastard. Humph, you were the one who insisted on letting him take action. In the end, Wen Yuqing was inferior to him and you want to take action? It's true that when you beat the young, the old will come. You spirit cultivation sects like this the most. Qiao Peng was not afraid at all. Although Leng Shiqi's move had broken the rules, since it had already been done, he had to be tough. He wanted to see who dared to look down on the Dark Thunder Guards. Elder Wan's eyes were full of hatred and he roared at Leng Shiqi. The battle on the arena has always stopped at a certain point. Why did he want to kill him? Leng Shiqi said indifferently, in my eyes there has never been a competition. As long as I make a move there will be blood. Arrogant. Elder Wan seemed to have gone mad and he wanted to eat Leng Shiqi alive, but he did not rush up directly because he was not sure that he could defeat Qiao Peng. Qiao Peng was at the peak of spirit astral realm, which was higher than Elder Wan's cultivation. Moreover, Elder Wan was old and his chi and blood had already declined. His battle strength was no longer at its peak, so he was not as good as Chao Peng. And the pavilion master of Benevolence Pavilion, Chi Likun's expression was also very ugly. Such a big mess had happened at the 100 Sex martial competition. If it was not handled well, the reputation that the Benevolence Pavilion had accumulated over the years would be greatly damaged. The most important thing was that this matter was likely to affect his own important plan today. However, he still had to deal with it. He stood out between Elder Wan and Chao Peng and said, "Both of you, please give me face and stop for the time being." He then transmitted a message to the two of them. "Lord Chao, Elder Wan, since it has already happened, we'd better find a chance to sit down and slowly discuss how to solve it. Now that we've made a move in front of so many people, it's really shameful." Elder Wan's heart was bleeding. Wen Yuqing was the hope of the next generation of Sky Crane sect, and even had the possibility of inheriting the position of sect leader. Now that he was dead, this matter could not be settled easily. Chapter 550. It was a pity that Elder Wan had only brought a few people this time. It was impossible for them to break through Chao Peng's blockade and kill Leng Shiqi. Just then Chi Likun's voice sounded in his ears again. "Elder Wan, don't worry. As long as you agree to one of my conditions, I can guarantee that I will help you keep this child and Chao Peng here. Elder Wan, please don't have any emotions. Please listen to me carefully." Everyone waited for Elder Wan's reaction. Whether or not this matter could be temporarily suppressed would depend on his attitude. Elder Wan was silent for a while, then said coldly, "I will give face to Pavilion Master Qi. After the 100 Sect martial competition ends, I hope that Master Chao can give me a satisfactory answer." With that, he waved his sleeves and left. A few Sky Crane sect disciples cleaned up Wen Yuqing's corpse and left. Leng Shiqi looked at Wen Yuqing's corpse and sighed in his heart. Back then he had to use all his strength to kill the heavily injured Li Xianyang. Now he could casually kill a late-stage spirit aperture realm cultivator. Against people with weaker cultivation than him, the remnant wind lightning light steps was abnormally strong. Wen Yuqing did not even have the chance to resist before he died. He raised his head and said to Chi Likun, "Pavilion Master Qi, is it time to give out the rewards?" All the spirit cultivators in the valley looked at Leng Shiqi strangely. "You're still thinking about the rewards? You're quite magnanimous." Chi Likun laughed dryly. "Haha, of course, man." With his order, a row of Benevolence Pavilion disciples carried jade plates onto the stage. Each of the jade plates had a mustard seed bag. Leng Shiqi did not hesitate to pick up one of the bags and looked inside. The amount and quality of the resources inside were not much, but it was better than nothing. What he valued the most was the Benevolence badge. It was a gilded badge and was very exquisite. There seemed to be a small-scale array inside that could not be replicated. The other people who received the rewards were also overjoyed. Except for Leng Shiqi, everyone else received both fame and resources. Naturally, they were all very happy. At this moment, Xuanhuan stood up and said to the 30 people on the stage, "My Thunderfire Dynasty welcomes all of you very much. As long as you are willing to join the Thunderfire Dynasty, you can choose from the Discipline Commission or the Dark Lightning Guards. There are also all kinds of cultivation resources. It will definitely be more than what you are getting now." Hearing this, not only were the 30 winners stunned, even the spectators below the stage and the VIPs on the Jade platform were stunned. What did Xuanhuan mean? Poaching in public? This was the 100 Sects martial meeting. Moreover, none of these sects had anything to do with the Thunderflame dynasty. For Xuanhuan to come here specifically to poach these sects, this was simply too ridiculous. What was even more ridiculous was that many people were tempted. Compared to staying in a third-rate or second-rate sect, they were far inferior to the Discipline Commission or the Dark Lightning Guards. Not to mention the distribution of resources, just their status alone was enough for people to not dare to provoke them. Although they usually looked down on the people of the Thunderfire dynasty and were even called the lackeys of the dynasty, in reality they were more jealous. Because those who could join the Discipline Commission or the Dark Lightning Guards all had good aptitudes, they could also join a second-rate or even a first-rate sect. Therefore, fundamentally speaking, the spirit cultivators at the bottom wanted to join the Thunderfire dynasty, especially since there were many rogue cultivators present. To them, if they could join the Discipline Commission or the Dark Lightning Guards, it would be equivalent to holding an iron rice bowl. It would definitely be better than drifting around. Now that Xuanhuan had given them this opportunity, a few of the 30 people on the stage were tempted. Chi Likun took a step forward to the center of the stage and snorted, "Is your Thunderfire dynasty really so good? The Discipline Commission and the Dark Lightning Guards are just the fangs and claws of the Thunderfire dynasty. You really think too highly of yourselves." Xuanhuan's actions just now were already shocking enough, but Qi Likun's words were still shocking. The moment he spoke, everyone was shocked. Originally, when everyone saw Qi Likun walk out, they thought that he would have a war of words with Xuanhuan, but no one would have thought that Qi Likun would say such disgraceful words. In reality, which one of the people present had not said such words in secret? But those were all whispers, but Qi Likun actually dared to slander the Thunderfire dynasty in front of Xuanhuan, Chao Peng and the Slaughtering King. Was he tired of living? Or was he crazy? From Leng Shiqi killing people on the stage to Xuanhuan poaching people, to now, it could be said that he had broken everyone's understanding time and time again. In comparison, Leng Shiqi killing Wen Yuqing was no longer a big deal. Did I say anything wrong? Qi Likun ignored everyone's shocked expression and continued, "Your discipline commission and the Dark Lightning Guard seem to have limitless glory, but think about it, Xuanhuan. Which of the 4 chiefs and the 4 punishment envoys doesn't have the backing of the imperial family or the military? You people can forget about ascending to a high position in your lifetime because the true power must be grasped by the imperial family. You will forever be nothing more than chess pieces." Everyone looked at Qi Likun with their mouths agape. Some people even felt that they were dreaming. Why did the 100-sect martial competition suddenly cause trouble for the Thunderfire dynasty? Lei Haoge immediately shouted, "Qi Likun, you dare to insult the dynasty in public? Are you trying to rebel?" Qi Likun sneered, "What bullshit Thunderfire dynasty? Everyone think about it. Ever since the Thunderfire dynasty was established, they set up the Discipline Commission and the Dark Lightning Guards, one in the open and one in the dark, to monitor us at all times. They make us live in fear all the time for fear that we will be killed if we make a mistake. In the eyes of the Thunderfire dynasty, we are lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Do you really want to be lambs for the rest of your life?" Qi Likun said with conviction, his words full of dissatisfaction with the Thunderfire dynasty. Finally he said to Lei Haoge with a gloomy face, "Lei Haoge, you are right. Today I am going to rebel." After saying that, his aura rose steadily. He was no longer in the gang spirit realm, but in the unity of heaven and men realm. With a majestic aura he said loudly, "Everyone, Lei Qingjun is old and will die at any time. His sons only know how to fight for power and profit and plot for the throne. When did they care about our life and death? Today I, Qi Likun, will rise up and swear an uprising. Our Benevolence Pavilion is no longer the Benevolence Pavilion, but the Thunder Extermination League. Anyone who is willing to join us will definitely have a place in the world in the future. Xuanhuan, your appearance is indeed unexpected. However, since you are here today, don't leave." Lei Qingjun was the name of the current emperor. It had been a long time since anyone dared to call him by his name. His words shocked everyone. It turned out that the Thunder Extermination League that had been stirring up trouble recently was actually created by the Benevolence Pavilion. After all this fuss, Qi Likun actually wanted to rebel against the Thunderfire dynasty. He was probably really crazy. At this moment, the people in the valley wished that they could grow a pair of wings and leave this place quickly. They did not want to be implicated. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen in the 100-sect martial competition? Rebellion was a huge matter, and it was also a matter that could lead to the annihilation of 9 generations. Who would dare to join? Even Leng Shiqi was shocked. Although he had expected that the Benevolence Pavilion or the Thunder Extermination League would use the 100-sect martial competition to stir up trouble, he did not expect Qi Likun to be so bold. Chapter 551. Leng Shiqi was even more suspicious. Who gave Qi Likun such courage? Lei Qingjun did not have much time left, but he was already making backup plans after his death. For example, threatening Donglin County's Mountain Sea sect was one of them. Moreover, there was no unrest in the Thunderfire dynasty. Everyone was living their own lives. It was not like the dynasty was going to split apart. Why would he be so righteous? Moreover, with the Thunderfire Destruction Alliance's strength, just the Discipline Commission of Shantai County and the Dark Lightning Guards were enough to annihilate them. They were not a threat to the Thunderfire dynasty at all. Therefore, Leng Shiqi thought that Qi Likun was either out of his mind or had some backup plan. Qi Likun looked at everyone present. How could he not know what they were thinking? He could not help but sneer. "Everyone, stop hesitating. Do you think you'll be fine if you don't join? My Benevolence Pavilion has been established in Shantai County for decades. Over the years, we have issued countless benevolence orders. Half of you here are members of the Benevolence Pavilion. Even if you don't follow me, the Thunderfire dynasty will see you as my accomplices. Your families and sects will be implicated because of this. Therefore, it's not up to you whether you join or not." When he finished speaking, Qi Likun's face was full of gloominess. It turned out that he had been planning this for decades. When everyone heard this, they could not help but curse, especially those who had benevolence orders. Their faces were flushed red. It turned out that they had been tricked long ago. They also knew that Qilin was right. According to the Thunderfire dynasty's usual practice of killing innocent people rather than letting them go, they would definitely be seen as Qilikun's accomplices and annihilated together. I'll give you one last chance. After I kill Xianru, if you continue to hesitate, don't blame me for disregarding our many years of friendship, Qilin said coldly. At this moment, Xianru suddenly laughed. Haha, ridiculous, extremely ridiculous. Qilin, do you think you can shake the Thunderfire dynasty with the strength of the Benevolence Pavilion and these pieces of trash? You want to kill me? With your cultivation base that has just entered the unity of heaven and man realm, you're not worthy. Perhaps I alone won't be enough. What if I add these two? With that said, two seemingly ordinary spirit cultivator walked up to the stage. With every step they took, their chi would soar, and they were not any weaker than Qilin. Another two experts at the unity of heaven realm. When did the Benevolence Pavilion have such a foundation? Looking carefully, someone immediately recognized the two unity of heaven realm cultivators. Isn't that the Sky Crane Gang's gang leader Xuanhuan and Grand Elder Xianhui? It's true. Even the Sky Crane sect has rebelled? Qilin opened his arms and said with an arrogant expression, "This is the strength of my Thunder Extermination Alliance. How is it, Lord Town Ambassador? Is this enough?" Xianru was also a little surprised. He had received a secret report that the Benevolence Pavilion was the Thunder Extermination Union. Originally, he thought that he could completely suppress them with his own strength. Now, it seemed that he was a little overconfident. Fortunately, he wasn't unprepared. He shouted, "I didn't expect the Thunder Destruction Union to have secretly developed to this extent. However, since I knew you would cause trouble, how could I not have a backup plan? Brother Peng, show yourself." Just then, a green stream of light shot in from outside the valley. When the light dissipated, everyone recognized who it was. It was the previous patrol inspector of Shantai County, Peng Anlin. When he appeared, Chao Peng was the most surprised. Didn't Peng Anlin already live in seclusion? Why was he here with Xianru? He thought about it even more. Since Peng Anlin was back, wouldn't his position as the patrol inspector be over? Peng Anlin was dressed in an ordinary green robe. He said, "After Su Jun betrayed us, I found some clues. Hence, I purposely went into seclusion and continued to investigate in secret. You guys hid well enough. You might as well let Lord Inspector Liu find out the truth. Qilin, surrender." When Qilin saw Peng Anlin, his face stiffened. However, he had no choice but to release the arrow. He roared, 2 against 3 and you guys think you've won? Everyone come out. Let them see the strength of the Thunder Destruction Union. Boom. Immediately, hundreds of people in the crowd released their spiritual pressure at the same time, and then jumped onto the ring. Looking around, there were 7 or 8 masters of Gang Spirit Realm, more than 20 masters of Spiritual Aperture Realm, and more than 200 masters of Spiritual Pulse Realm. This kind of strength was definitely stronger than a first-rate faction. The spirit cultivators that came to participate in the 100-sect martial competition never thought that there would be so many Thunder Destruction Union members hidden around them. They were all shocked. Lei Haoge, who was still standing on the Jade stage, raged, "What a Qilin, what a Thunder Destruction Union. So you guys have been secretly nurturing your power. Damn it. If you didn't speak, I would have forgotten." Qilin laughed in disdain, "Slaughtering King? You're just a piece of trash. Do you really think you're someone important? Do you know why I invited you here and let you sit on the main seat? Do it." All of a sudden, the chair beneath Lei Haoge shattered, and golden chains shot out from within. Hidei was shocked. He held a pitch-black dagger in his hand and released a cold aura around him. However, it was immediately suppressed by the aura of the golden chains. In that short moment, Lei Haoge was tied up tightly by the golden chains. "Hidei, I know you cultivate the Baleful Spirit Constellation. In front of the diamond chains you should save it." Qilin's face was filled with pride. Everything was under his control. As long as he killed Xianru and Peng Anlin, he would have Lei Haoge as a hostage. However, Qilin did not notice that neither Lei Haoge nor Hidei were panicking. It was as if this was within their expectations. At that moment, an extremely sharp and powerful blade aura suddenly appeared and slashed towards the diamond chains. The one who attacked was Feng Shamo. He was originally very close to Lei Haoge. After Leng Shiqi came down, he started a series of shocking events. Therefore, everyone completely ignored him. In truth, after Leng Shiqi received the information, he had secretly contacted Lei Haoge. Furthermore, he had guessed that the Thunder Destruction Union would make a move on him. Thus he had Feng Shamo as a backup. When the sharp blade aura collided with the diamond chains, sparks flew. The blade aura was actually unable to cut through the chains. Feng Shamo snorted, and countless wind blades appeared on his saber aura, instantly severing the Vajra chains. Qi Likun's smile froze. Before he could react, another change occurred. Below the stage, nearly 30 Spirit Aperture Realm cultivators suddenly erupted and attacked the Thunder Destruction Union members. Outside the valley, several hundred Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators charged over. These people were He Feichen from the 29th Guard and Lei Haoge's retainers. Hoo. At the same time, scarlet flames filled the sky and formed a formation that enveloped all the Thunder Destruction Union members. The one who attacked was Elder Huang. Lung Shiqi, who had been ignored by everyone for a long time, said softly, "It's my turn." Chapter 552. Ever since Feng Shamo rescued Lei Haoge, the series of unforeseen events caused Qi Likun to be stunned. He began to feel that today's events were already out of his control. Looking at the current battle strength of both sides, the Thunder Extermination Union had a slight advantage. However, it was almost impossible to kill Xuanhuan and Peng Anlin today. Furthermore, even if the Thunder Extermination Union won today, they would suffer heavy losses. It would be extremely difficult for them to cause trouble again. The only thing he could do now was to drag all the spirit cultivators here down with him. However, before he could speak, Lung Shiqi waved his arm and shouted, "The Thunder Extermination Union is extremely daring. Even the heavens will not tolerate their evil intentions. Today we will definitely catch all of you in one fell swoop. Those who do not have anything to do with the Thunder Extermination Union, leave now. Those who do not have anything to do with the Thunder Extermination Union will not be held accountable." Lei Haoge's heart skipped a beat. This was a good opportunity to increase his reputation. He hurriedly shouted, "That's right. This king can guarantee that the Thunder Flame Dynasty will only target the Thunder Extermination Union. As long as the other powers know their place, they will be innocent." Xuanhuan activated his spirit energy and his voice resounded through the clouds. "The Discipline Division has been ordered to suppress the Thunder Extermination Union. Those who do not have anything to do with it, leave now." Peng Anlin also spoke. "The Dark Thunder Guards have been ordered to eliminate the Thunder Extermination Union. Those who do not have anything to do with it, leave now." How could the other powers dare to stay here any longer? They immediately left the valley like a tide. Of course, there was someone who did not leave. That was Elder Wan of the Sky River sect. Elder Wan did not know that the Sky Crane sect had joined the Thunder Extermination Union. He only found out when Qi Likun sent him a message when he was about to fight with Chao Peng. Since things had already reached this point, he could only choose to stay. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared straight at Lung Shiqi. He did not hide his killing intent at all. Lung Shiqi's eyes flashed with a cold light. He pulled out the Blood Shadow sword and ordered, "Kill." His status was not the highest here, and his cultivation was not the strongest, but he had obtained the most crucial information. Most of this was planned by him, so the right to command was given to him. As soon as the word "kill" was uttered, the entire valley was immediately filled with boundless spiritual energy fluctuations. Countless spiritual lights, spiritual techniques, and spiritual highland were wreaking havoc crazily. It was simply appalling. Elder Wan's hands turned into claws, and his pure white stellar energy transformed into a white crane that shot straight at Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi was in high spirits. Elder Wan was at the 7th level of Gang Spirit Realm. It was the first time for him to fight with a master at the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm, which aroused his enthusiasm. He took a step forward and all kinds of strange auras filled the air around him. His skin instantly turned gray, and pieces of black armor covered his body. Traces of blood-red light flowed, and a pair of arms and a long tail grew out of his back. He looked extremely evil and terrifying. Wild Demon Blood Beast Body. It was the first time for Lung Shiqi to display the complete body of Wild Demon Blood Beast Body in a battle. His aura was definitely not weaker than that of a master at the 3rd level of Gang Spirit Realm. He held the sword in his right hand, and a shocking blood-red light burst out from the blade. Immediately, the blood-red light of the sword slashed down continuously, and his left hand shot out 5 blood-red thunders mixed in the light of the sword. The arms on his back carried a golden spear, and the spear shadows were like endless golden waves rolling back the sky. The wave-like shadows of the spear collided with the white crane. In an instant, horrible spiritual chi burst out, and the golden and white light twisted, which attracted some people's attention. Hidei, who had been guarding Lei Haoge, was one of them. At this moment, his attention was attracted by Lung Shiqi, because even he had to pay enough attention to Elder Wan's white crane. But Lung Shiqi could easily resolve it. Lung Shiqi turned into an evil spirit and displayed 3 completely different spiritual skills at the same time, which surprised Elder Wan. But judging from the strength shown by Lung Shiqi now, he was no less than that of a master at the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm. When Yuqing's death was not in vain. Lung Shiqi made 3 moves at the same time. The Golden Wave Spear resolved the white crane. He not only blocked Elder Wan's angry attack, but also turned defense into offense. The ferocious blood-red light of the sword and the thunders had already locked on Elder Wan. Endless pure white Gang Qi bloomed from Elder Wan's hands, like huge ribbons. He directly reached out and crushed the 5 thunders of Blood Sky Finger and disrupted all the sword lights. However, what he didn't expect was that there were some extremely subtle shadow sword lights hidden under the blood-red light of the sword. They quietly approached Elder Wan without him noticing. Despicable. Elder Wan was shocked and couldn't help but curse. He suddenly clapped his palms, and the vigorous palm force kept squeezing, and finally resolved the shadow sword lights. At the same time, white feathers rose around him. Each of these feathers was condensed by his gang spirit. Just one of them was enough to easily kill a spirit cultivator who had just entered the spirit aperture realm. Lung Shiqi also looked dignified. It was not easy to deal with a master at the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. His powerful spiritual force kept surging. Looking at the sky again, he didn't know when the countless feathers were mixed with colorful petals. The petals suddenly shattered, and in an instant the densely packed triple extinction sword chi spread out in all directions. Before the white feathers could even display their power, more than half of them were destroyed. Elder Wan calmed down at this time. He stretched out a hand, which suddenly became as white as jade. He suddenly stretched out, and in an instant, it was as powerful as thunder, ignoring the space and arriving in the blink of an eye. Lung Shiqi felt the terrible power of the jade hand. If he was really hit, he would be injured even if he activated the wild evil demon blood beast body. Boom! Thunder exploded under his feet, and in a flash of purple light, he moved hundreds of feet away. I know you have a high-level body movement spiritual skill. How can I let you escape like this? Elder Wan showed a triumphant smile. A huge white jade palm, which was hundreds of feet long, covered the sky and the sun, and slapped down fiercely. Lung Shiqi's heart sank. He planned to continue to use residual wind and thunder light steps to leave, but unexpectedly, there was a strange force under the huge white jade palm, which made it difficult for him to move for a while. Let's see if you are still alive. Elder Wan shouted crazily, as if he had already seen Lung Shiqi's tragic death. A pale yellow semicircular light shield suddenly appeared on Lung Shiqi's body. He pushed his arms to the side, and the semicircular light shield spread around at a speed visible to the naked eye. Wherever the light shield passed, whether it was the arena or the ground, it was overturned by a strong repulsive force. Earth Pulse. The magical anti-gravity force held the huge white jade palm in the air, and Lung Shiqi took the opportunity to flash out. The dark golden light in his hand kept flashing, and the ultimate Yang secret handprint twisted the air and smashed out. The hands on his back quickly made a gesture, and the fire spiritual force between heaven and earth madly gathered to him. Immediately, 9 thick golden fire pillars broke out of the ground, and the dragon flame burned everything. Chapter 553. The destructive power of the ultimate Yang secret handprint was frightening, but for Elder Wan, the real threat came from the 9 Palaces fire formation. That was the 9 Palaces fire formation supported by the red gold earth dragon flame. As soon as the red gold earth dragon flame came out, the temperature of the whole valley rose sharply. The land within a radius of hundreds of feet turned into a sea of flames. Everyone felt hot all over, including those in the oneness of heaven and men realm who were fighting fiercely. There were 3 people in the oneness of heaven and men realm on the Thunder Exterminating League side, but they were suppressed by Zhan Rue and Peng Anlin. Especially Zhan Rue, who held a heavy halberd, was so powerful that no one dared to fight with him face to face. At this moment, he still had time to take a look at Lung Shiqi's side, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. That kind of flame actually made him feel a trace of threat. It was even more so for Elder Wan, who was facing the crimson gold earth dragon flame head-on. At this moment, he was deeply trapped in the 9 Palaces fire formation. The powerful and domineering crimson gold earth dragon flame was constantly burning his Gang Qi. The moment he revealed a slight flaw, he would be burned to ashes. He was at the 7th level of Gang Spirit Realm, but a junior who was half a step away from Gang Spirit Realm had the absolute upper hand. Elder Wan's old face turned red. If he was really defeated today, he could directly slit his own throat and commit suicide without anyone else's help. His white hair fluttered without wind, and an ethereal aura drifted out. He pointed 2 fingers at the sky, and immediately, pure white spiritual highlands suddenly bloomed around him. His body turned into a spiritual light and rushed into the sky. With a crane cry, he directly turned into a pure white crane and circled in the sky. Crane roaring in the sky? Wanjishan, are you crazy? Xianhui, the Grand Master of the Sky Crane sect, shouted in horror. The crane roaring in the sky was the supreme secret method of the Sky Crane sect, with infinite power, but the corresponding price was great. The price was to burn one's lifespan. Elder Wan was already old and didn't have much lifespan left. Now that he was forced to use the crane roaring in the sky, even if he won, he would only have a few days left. Of course, Elder Wan knew that he would not have a good ending. However, no one knew how terrifying the 9-palace fire formation was. Anyone who came into contact with it would have a layer of skin peeled off. He had no choice but to risk his life. Moreover, if he could use his old body to fight a peerless genius to death, it would be a gain. Elder Wan transformed into a heavenly crane. Just his overflowing aura alone was enough to shatter the ultimate Yang underworld palm. The raging fire pillar of the 9 palaces fire formation was also suppressed. Sky Crane's blood-red eyes locked onto Leng Shichi's main body. He spread his wings and soared into the sky. After throwing a punch, his terrifying aura energy formed a huge storm and attacked Leng Shichi. Leng Shichi continued to maintain the 9 palaces fire formation with his arms behind his back. He suddenly clenched his fists and 2 dazzling rays of light, one black and one white, suddenly bloomed. The 2 rays of light intertwined and circled around each other. A dragon's roar suddenly resounded through the heavens and earth, and a black and white dragon, more than 100 feet long, descended upon the world. Floating Dragon Taishu. As soon as the black and white dragon appeared, the whole world was shaken. Many people's spiritual skills were affected to a certain extent, and the valley suddenly became a little chaotic. The 5 masters of the oneness of heaven realm who were fighting fiercely stopped at the same time and looked over here. Everyone's eyes revealed more or less shock. The power of heaven and earth, he actually activated a trace of the power of heaven and earth. Chi Likun was the most shocked, and his tone was full of disbelief. It's impossible. Even I can't comprehend the power of heaven and earth. How can he, a half-step to Gang Spirit Realm, do it? Gao Han, the leader of Sky Crane sect, also couldn't believe it was true. Another person murmured, Elder Wan is in danger. In the battlefield, the invisible dragon might made the red-crowned crane that Elder Wan transformed into tremble. This was the suppression from the life level. What made Elder Wan even more shocked was that when he was locked by the black and white dragon, he seemed to see death beckoning to him. However, at this time he had no way to retreat. He made up his mind, and a layer of faint blood chi emerged from his body. He actually burned his essence and blood at the same time. The originally pure white sky crane was dyed with a layer of blood, and became a little demonic. However, when the black and white dragon collided head-on, the edge of the sky crane's body began to collapse before it got close. What was worse, the 9 palaces fire formation also broke out. The fire pillars turned into rockets and shot directly at the sky crane. The horrible flames seemed to be able to shoot a hole in the sky. The dragon, the sky crane, and the rockets finally collided with each other. The loud explosion in the sky kept spreading, like a volcanic eruption, and even the whole valley faintly trembled. Everyone's attention was attracted. This terrible movement was even louder than the movement of those masters of the oneness of heaven realm. When everyone turned around, almost all of them were tongue-tied. It turned out that a charcoal-like body was falling from the sky, and no one knew whether it was dead or alive. That body was clearly Elder Wan of Sky Crane sect. A dignified elder of a first-class sect at level 7 of Gang Spirit Realm was killed by a junior who was half a step away from Gang Spirit Realm? Even if he overdrew his lifespan and burned his essence and blood, he could not change this outcome. Those who knew Leng Shichi were shocked, and at the same time, they listed Leng Shichi as an enemy they could never make in their life. As for those who didn't know Leng Shichi, they were simply shocked and couldn't believe their own eyes. Gao Han's eyes turned red, and he attacked furiously. A shadow of an immortal crane flashed behind him, and the divine light above his head soared into the sky. He formed a seal with his hands, and the divine light bloomed with a bang. With endless pressure, he attacked Leng Shichi directly, as if he wanted to kill him directly. Shameless. Zhan Rui was also shocked and angry. As a master of the oneness of heaven realm, Gao Han ignored his identity and attacked a junior who was 2 realms lower than him. But for Gao Han, he did not care about seniors and juniors. He had seen Leng Shiqi kill their genius disciple Wen Yuqing with his own eyes. At that time he did not show up in order to hide his identity. Now that he had witnessed his own elder being killed, he would kill Leng Shiqi even if he would lose all his face and be shamed by thousands of people. Xuanhuan hurriedly waved his heavy halberd. At this moment, the sky darkened as if all the light was attracted by the heavy halberd. This move was enough to shatter mountains and rivers. Unfortunately, the divine light was too fast and Xuanhuan could only block most of it. But still, a small part of it still came to Leng Shiqi. Others saw that it was too late to make a move. Even if they wanted to save Leng Shiqi, they could not get rid of the opponent in an instant. They could only try their best to kill the enemy in front of them first. Feng Shamo did not hide his strength anymore. He rolled out the illusory wind spiritual gang and directly pulled in 3 masters of gang spirit realm, 1 against 3. Elder Huang quickly formed a seal and also displayed the 9 palace fire formation. His blazing spiritual gang was condensed by Leng Shiqi using the crimson gold earth dragon flame. Although it was not as strong as the crimson gold earth dragon flame, it was still much stronger than ordinary fire spiritual gang. After the fire formation appeared, he directly enveloped the spirit aperture realm cultivators of the Thunder Extermination League. In an instant, screams sounded one after another. Xuanhuan was like a spirit phoenix, constantly wandering among the spirit aperture realm cultivators. Every time she attacked there would be blood. She was like a blood fairy, causing people's expressions to change. After Zhuge broke through to the gang spirit realm, his strength had greatly improved. He held the heavenly jade star diagram sword in his hand and released Star Spirit Gang. He formed a formation out of thin air and drew a blurred star diagram. All the cultivators of the Thunder Extermination League who were in the star diagram had their cultivation suppressed by 30%. Immediately, he shook his sword and the countless stars in the star diagram all turned into starlight sword chi, surging in all directions like a meteor shower. Leng Shiqi, who was facing the divine light, held the demon arrival battle blade tightly. His whole body surged with pure demonic chi and even his eyes turned pitch black. The demon arrival battle blade had not fought for a long time and also let out an excited buzz. Chapter 554. The divine light with a strange rhythm sprinkled down, and anyone who touched the divine light was turned into nothingness. The evil energy around Leng Shiqi kept surging, and a piece of evil cloud rose. The demon arrival war saber in his hand was trembling slightly, and his eyes were bursting with evil energy like a crazy demon. However, the next moment, the evil energy all over the sky suddenly shrank and was absorbed into the demon arrival war saber. At this moment, the demon arrival war saber shook more violently, as if it would fall out of his hand at any time. Leng Shiqi didn't want to confront the divine light directly. He stepped on the remnant wind thunder light steps and moved as fast as thunder, but his figure was swaying like the wind, which was unpredictable. In the twinkling of an eye, he moved hundreds of feet away and avoided part of the divine light. However, a shadow of a demon flashed behind Leng Shiqi and chopped down. The black light of the saber tore the sky as if it was going to split the sky. Demon, a ephemeral bloom. Coincidentally, he was close to Zhuge at this time. He was bathing in the star atlas, like stars surrounding the moon, suppressing the master at the 3rd level of gang spirit realm. However, there was a sudden change. When Leng Shiqi approached Zhuge, the star atlas suddenly twisted. Surprisingly, the stars in the star atlas took the initiative to leave the star atlas and all flew toward Leng Shiqi. Zhuge was shocked. The star atlas was the foundation of his battle, but now it was completely out of his control? What surprised him even more was that pieces of mysterious star atlas appeared on Leng Shiqi's gray and black armor, and all the stars flew into Leng Shiqi's body. Leng Shiqi's heaven-shocking demonic saber was also dotted with stars. It looked extremely mystical. The starlight magic saber tore apart Gao Han's divine light in an instant. The evil energy and the divine light were constantly destroyed, and the fluctuation of spiritual power made everyone shocked. In fact, what shocked them most was Leng Shiqi. First, he killed Elder Wan, who was at the 7th level of gang spirit realm. Everyone thought that he had tried his best and would not have the strength to fight again. He would definitely die under Gao Han's divine light. Some people were already sighing inwardly. Such a dazzling genius had still fallen. However, not only did Leng Shiqi have the strength to fight again, but he also used a stunning slash to break the divine light. Even Gao Han, who had attacked, was inwardly shocked. He had not held back in the slightest and had attacked with his full strength. Although more than half of the divine light was blocked by Xianhui, it was not something that a mere half-step to Gang Spirit Realm could deal with. Originally, he also thought that Leng Shiqi would definitely die, but in the end he was still alive and well. On the other hand, because Xuanhuan attacked Leng Shiqi, he was completely suppressed by Xianhui and was already injured. Zhuge Puha was still standing in the same place, motionless as if he had lost his mind. Only when his opponent's attack was about to hit him did he finally come to his senses. Leng Shiqi had used demon short-lived epiphyllum. He had used up most of his energy, and his wild demon blood beast body had disintegrated. He didn't have much combat power left. However, every time someone died here, a wisp of their soul would be absorbed by him, nourishing his body and primordial spirit, allowing him to slowly recover. He quietly withdrew from the center of the battlefield and came to the edge to observe. First of all, his subordinates were relieved when they saw that he was safe and sound. They attacked more fiercely. On the battlefield of the Spirit Aperture Realm, every member of the 29th Guard Squad was a well-known figure among their peers. They were definitely among the strongest, especially since many of them had been killed by the Thunder Extermination Alliance. Now that they had met their enemies, their eyes were filled with hatred, and the battle was exceptionally fierce. Half of the Spiritual Aperture Realm subordinates under Lei Haoge assisted Heifeichen and the other half went to kill the Spiritual Pulse Realm subordinates of the Thunder Extermination League. It was a one-sided situation. Now there were hundreds of corpses on the ground. In the Battle of Gang Spirit Realm, Elder Wan, who had many powerful enemies, had been killed by Leng Shiqi. The Great Supervisor, Su Jun, who had defected, was forced to retreat by Chao Peng. Zhuge Puha and Elder Huang were each fighting one person. The most exaggerated one was Feng Shamo. He was so domineering that he was not at a disadvantage when fighting 1 against 3. As for the Battle of the Five Oneness of Heaven Realm, Zhan Rui and Peng Anlin had the upper hand. At this moment, Peng Anlin was blocking Qi Likun and the Great Elder of Sky Crane Sect, Xianhui, while Zhan Rui was attacking Xuanhuan with all his strength. Xuanhuan was no match for Zhan Rui. More and more wounds appeared on his body. If this continued, he would be killed by Zhan Rui on the spot. In a fight between masters, a single mistake would lead to a series of mistakes. It was because Xuanhuan had attacked Leng Shiqi that he had fallen into such a predicament. At first glance, the Thunder Destruction League was already at a complete disadvantage. The so-called uprising had finally become a joke. Xuanhuan was already thinking of retreating. At the very least, he still had the foundation of the Sky Crane Gang. At worst, he could just escape with his gang members. As long as he was alive, there was hope. With his strength, he could establish a foothold anywhere. But Zhan Rui had already seen through his intention. He moved like a dragon and blocked Xuanhuan's way. Under the heavy halberd's fierce attack, the sky and earth changed color. With a loud explosion, the heavenly weapon descended from the 9th heaven and fell directly at Xuanhuan. "What? You've already reached this step?" Xuanhuan exclaimed. It turned out that Zhan Rui had not used his full strength all this time because he was waiting for an opportunity to kill him in one blow. Xuanhuan seemed to want to use the crane's cry in the 9th heaven to fight for his life. However, the power of heaven and earth around him suddenly squeezed, causing the spiritual power in his body to stagnate. He could not use any spiritual technique at all. His face was instantly filled with horror. The 9 heavens divine weapon shook the space and finally killed Xuanhuan. The leader of Sky Crane Sect had fallen. When Qi Likun saw this, he was not only shocked but also despaired. He knew that the Thunder Extermination League had been defeated. His ambition had ended before it could even begin. The only thing he could do now was to run. Run as far as he could. However, Zhan Rui's murderous eyes had already locked onto him. Anyone present could run, but Qi Likun could not. Peng Anlin, who had not revealed his powerful combat strength all this time, suddenly erupted. A curved sword appeared in his hand. The curve of the curved sword was very strange. It was almost like a full moon. As he slashed with the sword, a thick green sword aura suddenly swept across the sky and tore the world apart. Qi Likun could only be forced to resist. He slammed his palm down, causing the ground in the valley to crack as if the earth was shaking. However, Zhan Rui ignored Xianhui. He hesitated for a moment before crossing the space and appearing directly behind Qi Likun. Blood surged all over Zhan Rui's body, and a blood-red river flowed. He had actually burned his blood essence. His heavy halberd was also dyed with a layer of ferocious blood. The river of blood flowed as the halberd broke through the sky and pierced through Qi Likun, who could not react in time. The Pavilion Master of Benevolence Pavilion, the leader of Thunder Extermination League, the instigator of all this, Qi Likun, was dead. With Qi Likun's death, there was no suspense in the battle. The members of Thunder Extermination League were also shaken. Immediately, some of them turned and fled. It was only a matter of time before the Thunder Extermination League was destroyed. Seeing all this, Lung Shiqi secretly sighed in relief. Qi Likun could be considered a character to be able to endure for decades to set up a trap. He won in terms of shrewdness and being able to pull Sky Crane sect along. However, he lost because of his arrogance. He did not expect that the news of Benevolence Pavilion being Thunder Extermination League had already been leaked. This 100-sect martial meeting was not only an opportunity for him to cause trouble, but also an opportunity to destroy him. Qi Likun also did not expect Zhan Rui and Peng Anlin to be so strong. After all, the two of them were the Guardian Envoy and Patrol Envoy respectively. How could their strength be weak? Of course, Lung Shiqi also played a crucial role. He was the one who discovered the crucial information. He was also the one who killed the troublesome Elder One. He was also the one who caused Gao Han to reveal a flaw and fall into a disadvantageous position. In the end, he was killed by Zhan Rui. If not, those 3 Unity of Heaven Realm cultivators might have escaped. That was the same as letting the tiger return to the mountain. There would be no end to the trouble in the future. Chapter 555. Now that the situation had been decided, Lung Shiqi was bewildered. Who exactly gave Qi Likun the courage to go against the Thunderblaze dynasty? If Lung Shiqi had never come to Shantai County, the Thunderstorm League and the Sky Crane Gang might not be able to defeat the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards. Once news of this spread, it would attract a large number of experts. No matter how he looked at it, the Thunderstorm League would be destroyed. Wouldn't Qi Likun be throwing his life away? While he was thinking, the members of the Thunderstorm League began to flee. Although they managed to stop some of them, it wasn't easy to stop the Spirit Aperture Realm and Astral Spirit Realm experts if they wanted to escape. However, the Sky Crane Gang's elder, Xianhui, couldn't be allowed to escape. After Zhan Rui and Peng Anlin killed him, the battle was basically over. They walked towards Lung Shiqi. Greetings, Discipline Commissioner Lord Zhan and Inspector Lord Peng. Lung Shiqi cupped his hands in greeting. Peng Anlin sighed in admiration. Steward Gao's choice is truly extraordinary. If it weren't for your information, Qi Likun would have been able to successfully kidnap the Slaughtering King. Not only would it have attracted endless trouble, it would have led to a disaster. That Qi Likun is quite capable. He made use of the characteristics of the Pavilion of Benevolence, which is almost beyond the jurisdiction of the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards. A moment of carelessness almost cost him a great disaster. Zhan Rui continued, but his face was very pale. That's right. I also didn't expect that the great Inspector Su Jun would be roped in. He even made the Dark Thunder Guards blind. Inspector Liu has done a great job this time. I think it won't be long before I call you the eunuch. The more Peng Anlin looked at Lung Shiqi, the more he liked him. Lung Shiqi said modestly, "You flatter me. I only did what I was supposed to do. By the way, there's still one thing I don't understand." He thought that Zhan Rui and the others would investigate further. However, Zhan Rui waved his hand indifferently and said, "It's obvious that Qi Likun was bewitched by someone else. Furthermore, I dare to say that it was either the Starfall dynasty or the Northern Wei dynasty who did it. They are just trying to create trouble for us. Especially now that His Majesty is not feeling well, they are getting more and more rampant. However, there's no need for Lord Liu to worry. We've already experienced this many times, so there's no need to be too concerned. The Thunderflame dynasty has also planted spies in the other 2 dynasties. It's common for us to deal with each other." After hearing this explanation, Lung Shiqi could not help but feel a little surprised. It seemed that this was a common tactic used by the 3 empires. In the end, he had overthought it. As they spoke, the others began to clean up the battlefield. Chao Peng walked over with a human head in his hand. "Lord Peng, Su Jun has been killed by me. This child betrayed the Dark Thunder Guards and participated in the rebellion. He deserved it." Peng Anlin shook his head and said, "Don't call me Lord. I've already retired. You are the Dark Thunder Guards patrol envoy." Chao Peng's heart trembled. He hurriedly said, "Lord, didn't you pretend to retire so that you could secretly investigate?" After all, Peng Anlin had been the patrol envoy for a long time. He immediately saw through Chao Peng's thoughts. He said, "Retirement is retirement. There's no such thing as real or fake. Now that the Thunder Destruction Alliance no longer exists, I'm at ease. In the future, the supervisory authority of Shantai County will still be yours." Chao Peng was ecstatic when he heard this. However, he still had a conflicted expression on his face. Lung Shiqi did not pay attention to the matter between Chao Peng and the others. This was because Feng Shabo, Xuanhuan, and the members of the 29th Guards had already gathered. He asked, "How's the situation with the guards?" Heifeichen said, "Lord, the 29th Guards lost 3 people. The others are more or less injured." Heifeichen was also covered in blood, and there was a terrifying cut on his left arm. However, his face was filled with excitement. He had finally gotten his revenge today. As for the 3 people who had died, they were naturally the members of the 28th Guards who were originally loyal to Wei Xiangming. Leng Shiqi had long since prepared to get rid of them. Now that these 3 people were dead, the 29th Guards would be completely under his control. There would be no more accidents. Leng Shiqi took out a mustard seed pouch and said, "There are some resources in here. Why don't you distribute them to everyone?" Heifeichen looked down. Whoa, how was this some? This was clearly a huge amount of resources. Where did his lord get so many resources from? Of course, Leng Shiqi had obtained these resources from Qiao Peng and the others. The reason he had agreed to work with them to deal with the Slaughtering King was because he had his eyes on Dark Thunder Manor's resources. That day he had taken away the majority of Dark Thunder Manor's resources. What he had taken out now was only a small portion of it. Leng Shiqi glanced at the people who had come with him. He could sense a thick bloodlust and fighting spirit from them. As expected of the Dark Thunder Manor's War Thunder Guards, they never disappointed him in battle. It was worth mentioning that Xuanhuan and Feng Shamo's performance in this battle had shocked everyone, especially Feng Shamo. His 1 versus 3 stance was simply too crazy. Feng Shamo's shock was second only to Leng Shiqi's. Even now, Feng Shamo's killing intent was still rising. No one dared to approach him. Zhuge Puha stood not too far away from Leng Shiqi. He looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end he chose to remain silent. Clap clap clap. The Slaughtering King Lei Haoge clapped his hands as he walked over. He cupped his hands in greeting. With his status there was no need for him to do this. However, he knew very well that he was just an idle prince. The people in front of him either held high positions or had limitless potential. He had no choice but to lower himself. This time, not only did we eliminate the Thunder Destruction Alliance, we also eliminated their rebellion. I will definitely report this to Imperial Father and ask for your rewards. What followed next was supposed to be a round of mutual praise, but Leng Shiqi stepped forward and said, "There's no rush." Zhan Rui and Peng Anlin's eyes widened. Leng Shiqi dared to refute the Slaughtering King's words? Qiao Peng, on the other hand, looked as if he was used to it. Not to mention this, he had even seen Leng Shiqi scolding Lei Haoge before. In comparison, this was nothing. Lei Haoge's smile faded, but he continued to smile. "What do you mean, Lord Liu?" "I don't mean anything else. I just want to save your highness some trouble." "It's better to report it twice than once," Leng Shiqi replied. Lei Haoge revealed a confused expression. Beside him, Hidei seemed to have thought of something, and hurriedly transmitted a message to Lei Haoge. Leng Shiqi smiled inwardly. A cold light flashed through his eyes. The Sky Crane Gang dared to participate in the Thunder Destruction Alliance's rebellion. A sect like that shouldn't exist. As far as I know, the Sky Crane Gang only has one expert who has just entered the realm of being one with the world. Before the news spreads, we should eliminate the Sky Crane Gang as quickly as possible. That'll be a great merit. Lei Haoge was vexed when he heard this. He hadn't thought of this. If he had brought up this matter with his status, he could have led everyone to attack the Sky Crane Gang. At that time, most of the credit would have gone to him. However, now that Leng Shiqi had brought it up, Lei Haoge had lost the initiative. He could only sigh inwardly and ask, "Then when should we attack the Sky Crane Gang?" "Right now." Chapter 556. Now. Everyone was startled when they heard that. They had just gone through an intense battle and were all injured. It was not appropriate for them to attack the Sky Crane sect in such a state. Leng Shiqi knew what they were thinking from their expressions and said, "Even we do not dare to believe it, the Sky Crane sect naturally would not think that we would attack them directly. Everyone, do not forget that there are still many spirit cultivators outside the valley. Once we leave this place, everything that happened here will spread out quickly. The Sky Crane sect will also receive the news soon. Everyone, what do you think they will do? Run for their lives." Qiao Peng added. "That's right, we will kill them all before they can escape." Leng Shiqi's tone was filled with hostility, but his words were approved by everyone. Zhan Rui said, "I will inform the Discipline Division to move out and surround the Sky Crane sect." Qiao Peng looked at Peng Anlin, seeing that he had no intention of speaking. Qiao Peng said, "I will also inform the Dark Thunder Hall to lock down the area around the Sky Crane sect. We will not let anyone escape easily." Lei Haoge knew that this was a good opportunity to take credit and continued, Although my slaughtering king's manner is not as strong as the disciplined division and dark thunder guards, we cannot ignore a traitorous sect like the Sky Crane sect. This king will bring all the forces of the slaughtering king's manor to attack the Sky Crane sect. With these 3 forces and Leng Shichi's 29 guards, destroying the Sky Crane sect was as easy as flipping a hand. Without any delay, everyone rushed towards the Sky Crane sect. The Sky Crane sect was 2 to 3 days away from the valley where the 100-sect martial competition was held. Everyone was healing their wounds as they rushed. At the same time, the Discipline Division and Dark Thunder Hall's people gathered near the Sky Crane sect. They were just waiting for Leng Shichi to arrive and attack the Sky Crane sect together. 2 days later at the Sky Crane sect, the vice-sect leader of the Sky Crane sect, xuanhuan, was pacing back and forth in the hall with a worried look on his face. They should be back by now. Did they succeed or not? Sect leader Zhua. At this moment, a disciple ran in with a report in his hand and shouted in panic. Xuanhuan saw that the situation was not good. He did not say anything and quickly opened the report. Then he froze. Defeated. The Thunder Destroyer League was annihilated by the Discipline Commission, the Dark Thunder Guards, the Slaughtering King's Mansion and the Dark Thunder Guards headquarters before they could even start a war. Qi Likun, Xuanhuan and Xianghu, the 3 Oneness of Heaven Realm Masters, had all fallen. Xuanhuan felt as though his mind was struck by lightning, causing his vision to darken and he almost fainted. His hands trembled as he roared, "How is this possible? How is this possible? Someone leaked the secret, someone must have leaked the secret. It's over, it's completely over, Sky Crane Gang is finished. Quick, go and inform all the disciples. Don't take anything. Leave Shantai County immediately, right now." However, he was still a step too late. A loud voice that reverberated throughout the entire Sky Crane Gang was heard. The Sky Crane Gang secretly conspired with the Thunder Alliance and attempted to rebel. Heaven and earth will not tolerate this. Xuanhuan, quickly come out and accept your death. As for the others, those who surrender will be spared. Then countless shouts came from all directions. Quickly accept your death. Those who surrender will not be killed. The one who spoke was Leng Shichi. When Xuanhuan heard this, his legs went soft and he almost collapsed to the ground. As the deputy gang leader of a first-rate faction and an Oneness of Heaven Realm Master, he actually showed such a pathetic side. That was because he knew that his end had arrived. A few of the Sky Crane Gang's higher-ups ran in a panic and asked, "Gang leader Zhua, what's going on? I saw that the Discipline Commission and the Dark Lightning Guards have already surrounded us." "That's right. Are they telling the truth? Why would you do such a thing in secret? Isn't this the same as sending me to my death? Surrender. Perhaps you will still have a chance to live." Xuanhuan suddenly roared, "Surrender? Do you think that the Discipline Commission and the Dark Lightning Guards will let you go? Don't be foolish. Only by fighting to the death may you have a chance to live. Quickly activate the sect protecting array. I will personally preside over the array and fight to the death." Outside the Sky Crane Gang, Leng Shichi, Lei Haoge and the others stood at the front. They saw a boundless white light suddenly rise above the Sky Crane Gang and envelop the entire Sky Crane Gang. That is the Sky Crane Gang sect protecting array, the Crane Cry 9 Marsh Array. However, its defensive power is average. If Lord Peng and I work together, we will be able to break it in no time. Jean Rouet said with his arms crossed. He did not think much of the sect protecting array. Leng Shichi shook his head and said, "Don't worry. To maintain this array must cost a lot. Let them activate it. Anyway, we are tired from traveling and can recover a little. Moreover, once this array is activated, it means that the Sky Crane Gang members will not be able to escape. The higher-ups may want to fight to the death, but the low-level disciples may not think so. Just wait and see, they'll cause trouble on their own." After saying that, he really sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. Back then he fought with all his strength against Elder Wan and then resisted Gaohan's divine light. He had already exhausted his spiritual power. In the past 2 days he had been traveling without stopping, so he indeed needed to rest for a while. The others looked at each other. Leng Shichi's move of attacking the heart before killing was indeed brilliant. Sure enough, after an hour, there really were sounds coming from within the Sky Crane Gang. If they don't attack, are we really going to keep maintaining the array? A Spirit Aperture Realm disciple said with a pale face. To maintain the array, not only did it require a large amount of spirit stones, it also required a lot of people to pour in their spiritual power. Now that an hour had passed, they had used up more than half of their spiritual power, but there was still no attack from the outside. If this continued, their spiritual power would be sucked dry by the array. When that time came, they would be at the mercy of others. Many people were secretly dissatisfied, especially those disciples below the 4th level of the sky realm. These people were the most numerous, numbering in the tens of thousands. They did not know what was going on at all. Right now they could die at any moment. However, the sect had activated the array, so they had nowhere to run even if they wanted to. In the face of life and death, what loyalty? What faith of the sect? Some people simply threw caution to the wind and began wantonly destroying the array. There were even some who directly charged into the array to cause trouble. The entire Sky Crane gang instantly became chaotic. Another 2 hours passed, and the sect protection array of the Sky Crane sect suddenly became much fainter. Lung Shichi opened his eyes abruptly, and with the devil arrival battle saber in his hand, he pointed it forward and said coldly, "Kill." Zhan Rui and Peng Anlin took the lead. The moment they attacked, heaven and earth changed colors. Under the unparalleled might of the attack, the Crane Cry 9 marsh array was shattered. A feast of slaughter had begun. Chapter 557. In the evening, the Sky Crane gang's mountain had become a dead mountain. The setting sun was like blood, but it wasn't blood. Instead, it was a river of blood flowing slowly. The entire Sky Crane gang sect was filled with the thick smell of blood. Lung Shichi wiped off the blood on his saber and looked at the people who were plundering the Sky Crane gang's resources. He sighed in his heart. A first-rate sect. Not long ago this was an unshakable giant to Lung Shichi. But today he had actually destroyed a first-rate sect. In fact, it wasn't just him. Zhan Rui, Chaopeng and Lei Haoge were all like this. First-rate sects were second only to the top sects in the world. They were definitely overlords. For example, the Sky Crane gang was stronger than the Discipline Commission or the Dark Lightning Guards. If it was a normal situation, even if both sides worked together, they would still lose a mouthful of teeth. But who told their gang leader and Grand Elder to die early in the 100 sects martial meeting? Without these two peak forces, the Sky Crane gang's strength would be reduced by more than half. In addition to the slaughtering King's Manor and Lung Shichi's forces, destroying the half-crippled Sky Crane gang was naturally not a problem. However, the destruction of a first-rate sect had not happened in Shantai County for over 100 years. When this news spread out, let alone Shantai County, even the entire Thunderblaze dynasty would be shaken. This was naturally a good thing for the Thunderblaze dynasty, because there were many people hiding in the dark who were preparing to do something when His Majesty's lifespan was nearing its end. Today's battle could be considered a powerful deterrent. Those earth rats would not dare to show their faces for a short period of time. Lei Haoge also felt a little elated. He had been an idle prince for several years, but now he had annihilated the Thunder Alliance and then the Sky Crane gang. Even though he wasn't the mastermind during this process, he was still a prince. So, whether it was the Dark Lightning Guards or the Discipline Commission, they would put him at the top of the list. He could imagine how shocked his Imperial brothers would be when this news reached the Imperial capital. Lei Haoge grinned and said to Lung Shichi, "This king really admires Lord Lu and regrets that we didn't meet earlier. Tonight we will drink until we are drunk." The others were well aware that Lei Haoge was trying his best to rope in Lung Shichi. Lung Shichi naturally noticed this as well, but he didn't want to get too involved with these princes. He cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, I still have to rush back to the Imperial capital to report on my mission. Let's drink this wine another time." Lei Haoge's eyes twitched. Back at the slaughtering King's Manor, Lung Shichi's attitude had been completely different. Lung Shichi had even referred to himself as a subject. Next time? As long as Lung Shichi did not come to Shantai County, they would probably never have the chance to meet again. But Lei Haoge had made some progress. Not only did he not show any anger, he smiled even more brightly. He found a way out of this embarrassing situation and invited the others. Of course they happily agreed. Lung Shichi was about to leave with Feng Shamo and the others when a voice appeared in his mind. "Brother Lu, please wait." It was Zhuge Puha who transmitted the message. He said in a strange tone, "This one has some things to say to Brother Lu alone. Please step aside for a moment." Lung Shichi's footsteps did not stop. He only nodded his head slightly. That night, Lung Shichi and the others came to a small city to rest. He himself took advantage of the night to sneak out of the city. In a forest outside the city, someone had been waiting for him. When Zhuge Puha saw Lung Shichi appear, he waved his hand and scattered starlight in all directions. The starlight immediately dimmed, and the two figures could no longer be seen from the outside. No sound or presence could be heard from inside. "What's with all the commotion? If you have something to say, just say it." Lung Shichi said straightforwardly. Zhuge Puha said with a serious expression. Brother Lu, can you take off your clothes? Leng Shiqi immediately showed an expression of disbelief. Could it be that Zhuge Puha had some special fetish? In the middle of the night, in a dark forest, he even set up a formation. Leng Shiqi felt a chill run down his spine, but he immediately threw away these messy thoughts. There was indeed something fishy about his body. It was the star atlas that suddenly appeared on his body after he opened his 360 spiritual cavities. Now he also remembered that when he used demonic ephemeral bloom to deal with Gao-Han's divine light, he had indeed mysteriously absorbed Zhuge Puha's star atlas. At that time, Leng Shiqi was completely focused, so he didn't pay much attention to it. Later he also thought that Zhuge Puha had helped him, but now it seemed that something unexpected had happened. Looking at Leng Shiqi's disdainful expression, Zhuge Puha also realized his slip of the tongue. His expression stiffened and he said awkwardly, Brother Lu, please don't misunderstand. I just want to confirm something. Brother Zhuge, you'd better make it clear. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done such a strange thing. Leng Shiqi shook his head. Others didn't know, but he certainly knew that this star atlas was probably related to the legendary Stellar clan. That was the Stellar clan that had enslaved the human clan for countless years. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, the resentment buried in their souls hadn't weakened much. Once others knew that he was related to the Stellar clan, he would definitely become the public enemy. Not to mention a meteoric rise, it would be good enough if he could keep his life. Therefore, it was impossible for him to show his star atlas to outsiders. Zhuge Puha looked troubled and said, Brother Lu, actually when you were fighting against Gao-Han's divine light, I saw the star atlas, and I'm sure that it wasn't a spiritual technique. So, Brother Lu, don't deceive yourself. Also, I have absolutely no enmity towards Brother Lu. Please rest assured. However, the more he said this, the more suspicious Leng Shiqi became. After all, he had cheated Zhuge Puha of many precious cultivation resources. No matter how generous Zhuge Puha was impossible for him to not hold any grudges. He said, I have urgent matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. Seeing that Leng Shiqi still didn't believe him, Zhuge Puha sighed deeply. He formed a seal with his hands and stars appeared around his body. Strangely, Leng Shiqi's body also began to glow with faint starlight, reflecting Zhuge Puha's radiance from afar. Brother Lu, to be honest, my Zhuge family has a great relationship with you. This is the strongest evidence. Now, Brother Lu, are you willing to listen to me in detail? Leng Shiqi, who was about to turn around, paused. Now it seemed that there was indeed some relationship between him and Zhuge Puha, so he nodded silently. Zhuge Puha took a deep breath, and there was a hint of solemnity on his face. He said word by word, the Zhuge family is the guardian family of the Stellar clan. Chapter 558. Hearing the words guardian family, Leng Shiqi looked at Zhuge Puha suspiciously. The human tribe and the star tribe had been enemies for generations. No one would believe that Zhuge Puha or the Zhuge family was the so-called guardian family. Zhuge Puha knew that Leng Shiqi would not believe him. He used his spiritual power and tore off his shirt, revealing his muscular and beautiful upper body. Leng Shiqi's eyes narrowed. There was a star map on Zhuge Puha's body. However, he only had one star map. Compared to Leng Shiqi's countless star maps, it was too simple. Brother Lu, you have seen it? Strictly speaking, I am also a member of the star tribe. Unfortunately, my star tribe bloodline is so thin that it is almost non-existent. My family used a secret method to stimulate my bloodline, so I can only be considered half a member of the star tribe. Brother Lu, you have the pure bloodline of the star tribe. You are the person that the Zhuge family has been waiting for generations. The more Zhuge Puha spoke, the more excited he became. Leng Shiqi had never thought that there were descendants of the star tribe in this world. They had not been discovered for so long. At this point, Leng Shiqi was almost convinced. However, he still asked, as far as I know, the star tribe has been destroyed for hundreds of thousands of years. How did you survive until now? Also, how did you know that I have the bloodline of the star tribe? Zhuge Puha could see that Leng Shiqi was beginning to believe him. He was delighted and said, it is a long story. In fact, countless years ago, the human tribe on this continent was at the bottom of the food chain. At that time, the demon tribe was the overlord of this continent. The human tribe was not even considered as slaves. At most, they were considered as rations. Later, the star tribe suddenly appeared and slaughtered the demon tribe. They saved the human tribe from disaster. Unfortunately, the star tribe did not have a large population and could not exterminate the demon tribe. They could only drive them to the wilderness in the far north. The human race was rescued by the star clan. They took the initiative to worship the Star Clan as the God Clan. They worshipped the Star Clan for generations and named this continent the Star Glory Continent. Hearing this, Lung Shichi recalled the images that suddenly appeared in his mind in the dragon vein. It was indeed a group of silver-robed people slaughtering all kinds of powerful monsters. If all of this was true, then the history that everyone knew now was not true. According to the current records, the Star Clan was extremely arrogant. They regarded themselves as gods and humans as ants. However, this was the opposite of what Zhuge-Puha had said. Sure enough, the winner is king and the loser is a bandit. Zhuge-Puha's expression was also somewhat displeased. He continued, later on, without the demon race as their natural enemy, the human race began to multiply. Brother Lu should also be able to imagine the greed of human nature. As the human race increased in numbers, the resources they enjoyed naturally decreased. Thus, one war after another broke out. In order to stabilize the Star Glory continent, the Star Clan had to take action to suppress the wars in various places. However, they did not expect that the human race would hold a grudge against them. The human race was cunning. They begged the Star Clan to help them perfect their cultivation system. At the same time, they secretly accumulated strength and prepared to overthrow the Star Clan's rule. Strangely enough, over the past hundreds of thousands of years, the Star Clan gave birth to fewer and fewer children. Their bloodline became thinner and their strength gradually weakened. Until hundreds of thousands of years ago, the four saints suddenly rose and led the human race to overthrow the Star Clan and control this continent. From then on, the continent was renamed the Falling Star Continent. He briefly told the secret that had lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. Lung Shichi thought about it carefully. It really did seem like something that the human race would do. However, he also had a few questions. Even if what you said is the truth, so what? Do you still want to make a comeback and take control of this continent? Moreover, you still haven't explained how the Zhuge family survived. If Brother Zhuge can't explain it, you and I will be the only one who can leave this place tonight, Lung Shichi said indifferently. Since he had indirectly admitted that he had the bloodline of the Star Clan, Zhuge-Puha, who knew about it, was naturally on his blacklist. Zhuge-Puha did not mind Lung Shichi's words. He said, the Zhuge family's appearance was also a coincidence. Just now, I mentioned that the Star Clan had once helped the human race perfect their cultivation system. Moreover, it was increasingly difficult for the Star Clan to reproduce. As the saying goes, everything can be unexpected. When the Star Clan was communicating with the human race about their cultivation system, a couple fell in love. The most unexpected thing was that they actually gave birth to a child. It should be known that the Star Clan was a race that found it extremely difficult to reproduce. Perhaps this was the price they had to pay for being born with great strength. It was already difficult for them to reproduce even if they were from the same race, let alone with the weak human race. This matter immediately shocked all the Star Clan members. Faced with the dwindling population and thinning bloodline, they were shocked to find that the baby's bloodline was not weaker than the Star Clan's. Other than the appearance and the lack of divine power, the baby was no different from the Star Clan members. Hence, he was named Zhuge Xingqian. The Star Clan members were overjoyed. They did not care about the so-called differences between humans and gods and started to reproduce with the human race. However, since then no new children were born. Only Zhuge Xingqian had the ability to continue the bloodline. However, this could not solve the problem at its root. The Star Clan thought of many solutions. However, at that time the four saints were born. The Star Clan did not have time to study the bloodline. As the war continued, the Star Clan also realized their ending. Hence, they started to set up many backup plans. As the Zhuge Xingqian's bloodline looked exactly the same as the human race, they hid them among the human race and became the guardian clan of the Star Clan. They hoped that one day in the future, they would be able to restore the glory of the Star Clan. Zhuge Xingqian is the ancestor of the Zhuge family. Lung Shichi finally understood the origin of the Zhuge family. In his impression, the Zhuge family was a hidden family that was between a first-rate force and a top force. They did not have much of a presence in the outside world. Who would have thought that the Zhuge family was the backup plan left behind by the Star Clan? However, he was even more confused because he clearly had the appearance of a human. According to Zhuge-Puha, he should be a member of the Zhuge family. If he did not have his previous memories and did not know the truth about the Zhuge family due to his soul transmigration, it would be fine. However, Zhuge-Puha did not recognize Lung Shichi when the elites met him. This meant that Lung Shichi was not a member of the Zhuge family. Then where did he get the bloodline of the Star Clan? To be honest, I don't know why Brother Lu has the bloodline of the Star Clan. However, judging from the complexity of the star map on your body, The purity of your bloodline is definitely not inferior to that of a real member of the Star clan. The Zhuge family has been waiting for someone like Brother Lu for hundreds of thousands of years. If Brother Lu is willing to return to the family with me, we can completely activate the bloodline in your body. By then, Brother Lu's talent, power and foundation will reach an unprecedented height. What do you think, Brother Lu? Zhuge Puha stared at Leng Shiqi with a burning gaze. Leng Shiqi did not have any expression on his face. However, thousands of thoughts kept flashing through his mind. He was still trying to determine the authenticity of what Zhuge Puha had said. Judging from Zhuge Puha's behavior, what he had said was most likely true. However, Leng Shiqi was not sure if the Zhuge family's heart had changed. After all, hundreds of thousands of years had passed. No matter how loyal Zhuge Xingchen was back then, after so many generations, would the current Zhuge family still sincerely protect the Star clan? Moreover, if he went to the Zhuge family and was subdued by a group of experts, what would he do?